The light does not leave the city of Rome all at once. It is a slow, deliberate retreat, a gradual surrender of the golden warmth that has baked the stone streets since early morning. Now the heat begins to lift, rising up from the cobblestones and drifting away into the darkening sky, leaving behind a stillness that settles over the 7 hills like a heavy, comforting blanket. There is no urgency here. There is no need to rush. The day is done, and the demands of the sunlight have passed. Imagine a room. It is a modest room in a modest house, tucked away on a quiet street where the noise of the great forums and the busy markets does not reach. The walls are thick, built of brick and concrete, plastered over and painted in a pale, calming ochre that is now turning gray in the dimming light. The floor is made of stone, cool and smooth to the touch. It is a space of grounding, a space where the earth feels close and solid beneath the feet. In this room, a woman sits. She is not waiting for anyone. She is not preparing for a journey. She is simply present, existing in the quiet transition between the day and the night. She sits on a simple wooden chair with a high back, her hands resting loosely in her lap. The wool of her tunic is soft, worn smooth by time and washing, a familiar texture against her skin. It is an undyed wool, the color of cream mixed with dust, breathing with the rhythm of her slow, steady breath. You do not need to focus on her face or her name. She is simply a presence in the room, a witness to the coming of the night. If your mind wanders away from this room, that is perfectly fine. There is nothing here that requires your attention. There are no dates to remember, no battles to be fought, no arguments to be won. There is only the stone, the wool, and the fading light. To her left, there is a small window. It is high up on the wall, a rectangular opening that looks out onto a narrow courtyard. There is no glass in the window. It is open to the air, allowing the evening breeze to drift in. The breeze carries the scent of the city cooling down, the smell of dry dust, the faint, sweet aroma of pine from the distant hills, and the subtle, earthy scent of cypress trees. It is a clean smell, stripped of the smoke and sweat of the midday hours. The light outside is changing color. For the last hour, it was a deep, rich amber. Now it is shifting into a soft violet, a bruised purple that hangs low over the rooftops. The shadows in the corners of the room are growing longer. They stretch out from the legs of the table, from the base of the chair, reaching across the floor like slow-moving fingers. They are not menacing shadows. They are soft, blurry at the edges, merely the absence of light, filling the empty spaces with a quiet darkness. She watches a single dust mote floating in the last shaft of light coming through the window. It moves erratically, dancing on a current of air that is too subtle to feel. Up and down, spiraling, drifting. It glows for a moment, a tiny spark of gold, and then it passes into the shadow and disappears. It is a small event, insignificant to history, yet it happens, silent and observed. On the small, 3-legged table beside her, there sits an oil lamp. It is unlit. It is a simple object crafted from terracotta clay, the color of burnt orange. It fits in the palm of a hand. The surface of the clay is not perfectly smooth. It has the texture of the earth from which it was made, slightly rough, warm to the touch even without a flame. The potter's thumbprint is faintly visible near the handle, a frozen moment of creation from months or years ago. Next to the lamp is a small jug of olive oil. The jug is made of green glass, thick and bubbly, distorting the light that passes through it. The oil inside is heavy and golden, a liquid sunlight stored for the darkness. It moves sluggishly when the jug is tilted, rich and viscous. The woman reaches out her hand. Her movement is slow, deliberate. There is no shaking, no haste. She picks up the jug. The glass is cool against her fingertips. She tilts it over the reservoir of the clay lamp. The oil pours out in a thin, silent stream. It does not splash. It flows, folding over itself as it fills the belly of the lamp, rising slowly to the brim. She stops before it overflows, tilting the jug back. A single drop of oil hangs from the lip of the glass for a moment. catching the last of the twilight before falling back into the jug. She sets the glass down. The sound of the glass touching the wooden table is a dull thud, barely audible, swallowed instantly by the silence of the room. You can let your shoulders drop now. There is nothing else happening. The oil is in the lamp. The sun is setting. The world is turning. She picks up a small pick, a thin piece of metal used to adjust the wick. The wick is a piece of twisted linen, old cloth repurposed for light. It is charred black at the very tip from the last time it was used. She nudges it forward, pulling a fresh section of the linen up from the oil, ensuring it is soaked through. The linen absorbs the fuel, darkening as the oil seeps into the fibers. It is a process of preparation that has been repeated in this house, and in thousands of houses like it, for generations. She does not light it yet. The twilight is still sufficient to see the outline of the furniture, the shape of the room. She prefers to let the natural light fade completely before summoning the artificial one. It is a way of respecting the rhythm of the day. Outside, the sounds of the neighborhood have changed. Earlier, there was the shouting of vendors, the clatter of wooden cart wheels on stone, the laughter of children playing with knucklebones in the alley. Now those sounds have evaporated. In their place is a hush. Occasionally, a dog barks, but it is far away, muffled by the distance and the intervening walls. The sound of sandals slapping against the pavement passes by the house, slap, 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 and then fades away down the street, the walker heading home to their own quiet room. The air in the room is cooling. During the day, the Roman sun can be relentless, heating the brick and mortar until the house radiates warmth. But the evenings in the dry season bring a swift drop in temperature. She pulls her palla, a long rectangular shawl, closer around her shoulders. The fabric makes a soft rustling sound, like dry leaves brushing together as she adjusts it. It is a comforting weight, a gentle embrace that protects against the creeping chill. She looks at the floor. The mosaic tiles are arranged in a simple geometric pattern, black and white tesserae forming squares and diamonds. In the dim light, the contrast between the black and white softens. The sharp lines become blurry. The floor seems to merge into a single gray expanse. Her gaze traces one of the white lines, following it from the wall to the center of the room, then back again. It is a path for the eyes to walk when the body is still. There is a sense of immense safety in this boredom. Nothing is expected of her. The doors to the street are barred. The heavy wooden beam has been dropped into its brackets across the main door. The world outside is locked away. Inside, there is only the slow passage of time. She leans back in the chair. The wood creaks slightly, a groan of timber that has dried over many years. She closes her eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to listen. She listens to the house settling. Old houses breathe. They expand in the heat and contract in the cold. A rafter shifts overhead with a faint tick. The shutters on the window rattle ever so slightly as the breeze picks up, a gentle tap-tap against the frame. It is time to light the lamp. She opens her eyes. The room is now almost entirely gray. The corners have disappeared into true darkness. She reaches for the flint and steel sitting in a small ceramic bowl on the table. The steel is cold, the flint rough and jagged. This process is not instant like the lights of the future. It requires patience. She holds the flint in her left hand and the steel striker in her right. She strikes them together. Click. A spark flies out, a tiny, fleeting star that dies before it hits the table. She strikes again. Click. Another spark. And another. Click. This rhythmic clicking is the heartbeat of the evening. It is a sound of domesticity, of civilization against the night. Finally, a spark lands on the tinder, a small piece of dried fungus or charred cloth she has placed near the lamp's nozzle. A tiny pinprick of red appears. It glows, breathing. She leans in, blowing on it gently. The red glow brightens, spreading, consuming the tinder. With a steady hand, she transfers this small ember to the oil-soaked linen wick of the lamp. The oil hisses quietly, a microscopic sound as the heat touches it, and then the flame catches. It starts small, a blue base with a yellow tip, trembling as it establishes itself. Then it grows. It stands up, a tear-shaped tongue of fire. The light blooms outward. The transformation of the room is immediate but gentle. The gray gloom is pushed back, replaced by a warm, flickering orange glow. The shadows do not disappear, they change. They become sharper, deeper. The shadow of the lamp stretches long across the table. The shadow of the woman's hand, still hovering near the flame, is cast large against the wall, mimicking her movement. The smell of the burning olive oil begins to fill the space. It is a distinctive scent, earthy, slightly greasy, familiar. It smells of the olive groves, of the press, of the earth. It is not an unpleasant smell. It is the smell of home. It signals that the night has officially begun. She watches the flame. It is hypnotic. It dances on the wick, responding to the unseen currents of air in the room. It lengthens, then ducks, then steadies itself. The center of the flame is transparent, a window into the heat, while the edges are luminous yellow. It is the only thing in the room that is moving with energy. Everything else is static. She places the striker back in the bowl. Clink, the task is done. Now she is alone with the light. The circle of illumination is small. It lights up the table, her hands, and the front of her tunic. The rest of the room falls into a semi-darkness, visible only in outline. The corners of the room are now caves of shadow, deep and impenetrable. This does not frighten her. The darkness is simply the resting state of the world. She notices the texture of the table under the lamp's light. The wood is grainier now, the ridges and valleys of the timber highlighted by the low angle of the flame. There is a small knot in the wood, a dark swirl where a branch once grew. She traces the swirl with her eyes, round and round. There is a cup of water on the table as well. It is a clay cup, unglazed on the outside, glazed on the inside. She picks it up. The water is tepid, room temperature. She takes a small sip. It tastes of the aqueduct of minerals and stone pipes, clean and flat. She swallows, feeling the liquid move down her throat. She sets the cup down. Minutes pass, or perhaps it is an hour. Time is difficult to measure here. There is no clock ticking. The water clock, the clepsydra, is for the courts and the wealthy merchants who need to measure speech. Here, time is measured only by the consumption of oil in the lamp. The level of the oil drops imperceptibly. The flame burns on. She picks up a small piece of cloth from a basket near her feet. It is a napkin she is mending. The fabric is white linen, finer than her tunic. There is a small tear near the hem. She threads a needle. The needle is made of bone, polished smooth, with a small eye drilled into the top. She holds it up to the lamp to see the eye. The light shines through the bone, making it translucent. She pushes the thread through the eye. She does not hurry. If she misses, she simply tries again. There is no deadline for this mending. It is merely something to do with her hands, a way to keep the fingers moving while the mind rests. She begins to stitch. In, out, in, out. The needle dips into the fabric and emerges on the other side. The thread follows, pulling the edges of the tear together. The sound of the thread pulling through the linen is a soft swish, a whisper of friction. A swish and swish and swish. It is a rhythmic, repetitive motion. Her breathing syncs with the stitching. Inhale, needle in. Exhale, needle out. The world narrows down to this single point of focus. The needle, the thread, the cloth, the light. Outside, the wind picks up slightly. It whistles softly as it passes the eaves of the roof. It is a lonely sound, reminding those inside that they are sheltered. The flame on the lamp flickers in response, casting dancing shadows on the wall. The shadows jump and sway, silent companions in the night. She stops stitching for a moment and looks at her hands. They are the hands of a Roman woman, strong, capable, marked by small calluses from household work. The skin is illuminated by the orange light, showing the fine lines of her knuckles, the curve of her fingernails. She turns her hand over, looking at the palm. The lines of her life are etched there. She rubs her thumb over her fingertips, feeling the sensation of skin on skin. The silence is thick. It is not an empty silence, but a heavy one filled with the presence of the night. It wraps around her, muffling her thoughts. The worries of the day, the price of grain, the health of a neighbor, the dust on the floor have all receded. They belong to the sun. The moon and the lamp govern this time. She places the cloth back in the basket. The mending is not finished, but that does not matter. It can wait. She rests her hands on the table again, palms flat against the wood. She feels the vibration of the house, the deep, grounding stillness of the earth beneath the foundation. She stares at the flame again. It is a tiny sun in the darkness. It consumes the oil, turning liquid into light. It is a quiet miracle, one that happens every night in every home across the empire. From the foggy shores of Britannia to the hot sands of Egypt, women are sitting by similar lamps, watching similar flames, surrounded by similar silence. You are safe here. The walls are thick, the door is barred, the light is warm. Her eyelids feel heavy, not with exhaustion, but with a gentle drowsiness that comes from doing nothing. The act of sitting still is its own form of rest. She blinks slowly. The image of the flame lingers on her retina for a moment after she closes her eyes, a glowing afterimage in the dark. She opens her eyes again. The room is the same. The shadows have not moved. The dust has settled. The night stretches out before her, long and empty and peaceful. There is a small movement in the corner. A house spider, tiny and harmless, is building a web between the leg of a stool and the wall. She watches it. The spider works with the same slow deliberation as the woman. It spins its silk, invisible in the shadows, constructing its home. She does not sweep it away. It is a guest in the quiet night. The oil in the lamp has lowered slightly. A thin ring of residue marks where the level used to be. The passage of time is written in soot and oil. She decides to stand up. The chair scrapes lightly against the stone floor. She stands and stretches, reaching her arms up towards the ceiling. Her shadow towers over her, reaching up the wall and bending across the ceiling beams. She feels the stretch in her back, the release of tension in her shoulders. She lowers her arms slowly. She walks to the window again. The sky is now completely black. The stars are visible, pinpricks of cold light scattered across the heavens. They are the same stars that look down on the legions, on the emperors, on the shepherds in the hills. They are indifferent and beautiful. She cannot see the moon from this angle, but its pale light washes over the roof of the house opposite, turning the terracotta tiles to silver. The city sleeps, or at least it rests. The great heart of Rome beats slower now. The frantic energy of the day is suspended. She turns back to the room. The single lamp on the table seems brighter now that her eyes have adjusted to the darkness. It is a beacon of warmth. She walks back to it, her sandals making no sound on the smooth stone. She sits down again. The wood of the chair is still warm from her body. She settles back into the same position, hands in her lap, shoulders dropped. This is the night. This is the silence. This is the boredom that restores the soul. There is nothing to do but be here, in the glow of the olive oil lamp, while the Roman Empire turns slowly in the dark. The flame of the lamp has not moved. It stands perfectly straight, a tiny sentinel of yellow light in the center of the room. The air is so still that the fire does not even flicker. It merely exists, burning the oil, turning the liquid of the earth into the light of the house. The woman watches it. Her breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the room, long, shallow breaths that require no effort. After a time, she decides to move. It is not a sudden decision. It is a slow realization that the body requires sustenance, however small. She places her hands on the wooden arms of the chair. The wood is polished smooth by years of use, by the oils of many hands that have rested there before hers. She pushes herself up. The chair creaks, a low groan of timber that sounds loud in the quiet room. She stands for a moment, letting the blood flow back into her legs. She adjusts the folds of her tunic. The wool falls heavy and straight to her ankles. She turns away from the light of the lamp, walking out of the small circle of brightness and into the shadows that fill the rest of the house. She walks towards the culica, the small kitchen area tucked into the back of the house. Here, the floor changes texture. It is no longer the smooth mosaic of the main room. It is packed earth, hard and cool, worn uneven by generations of footsteps. She can feel the change through the thin soles of her leather sandals. The ground feels solid, ancient. The kitchen is dark. There is no lamp here, only the faint, dying glow of the charcoal in the masonry stove, the focus. The embers are deep red, buried under a layer of gray ash. They give off a very faint warmth, a memory of the fire that cooked the evening meal hours ago. The smell here is different. It is the smell of wood smoke, of toasted grain, of dried herbs hanging from the rafters. It is a dry, savory smell. She navigates the darkness with ease. She knows this room better than she knows her own face. She knows exactly where the table stands, where the jars are stacked, where the basket hangs. She does not need eyes to see. Her hands remember the geography of the kitchen. She reaches out and touches the rough surface of the wall. Her fingers brush against the plaster, finding the wooden shelf. Her hand closes around a small bowl made of coarse pottery. It is not delicate like the cup in the other room. This is sturdy, thick clay, unpainted and brown. It feels heavy and reliable. She moves to the large clay jar standing in the corner, the dolium. It is a massive vessel, half buried in the ground to keep its contents cool. It holds the household's grain supply. She lifts the heavy wooden lid. The sound of wood sliding against clay is a dry scrape, thud. She reaches inside with a wooden scoop. The sound of the scoop entering the grain is soft, like rain falling on dry leaves. Shh. She pours a small amount of spelt grain into her hand just to feel it. The kernels are hard, cold, and smooth. They run through her fingers like water, falling back into the jar with a gentle patter. She does not need grain tonight. She closes the lid. Next to the grain jar is a basket covered with a linen cloth. She lifts the cloth. Inside is a loaf of bread baked earlier that day. It is round, scored into 8 sections like a wheel. It is dense bread, heavy and dark. She breaks off a piece. The crust cracks with a sharp snap that echoes briefly in the small room. The inside is soft but firm. She holds the piece of bread in her hand, feeling its texture, the rough flour on the crust, the density of the crumb. She carries the bread and the small bowl to another jar. This one is smaller, sealed with a cork. It holds olive oil. She pulls the cork. It comes loose with a hollow pop. She tilts the jar over the bowl. The oil flows slowly in the darkness, invisible but audible. She hears the glug, slow and thick. Glug, glug. She stops. She can smell the oil now, peppery and green, sharper than the oil burning in the lamp. This is oil for eating, the lifeblood of the kitchen. She places the bread into the bowl, letting it rest in the oil. She turns to leave the kitchen. As she does, she passes the household shrine, the lararium. It is a small niche in the wall, painted with faded figures of dancing Lares, the guardian spirits of the home. A small offering of salt sits on a tiny plate before the painted figures. She pauses. She does not pray aloud. She simply acknowledges the space, a silent nod to the invisible watchers of the house. It is a moment of connection between the living and the spiritual, performed in the quiet routine of the night. She walks back into the main room. The lamp is still burning. The return to the light feels like entering a warm cave. She places the bowl on the table next to the lamp. The oil in the bowl glistens, catching the orange flicker of the flame. She sits down again. The chair receives her weight. She pulls the shawl tighter around her shoulders. The air has grown colder in the few minutes she was away. The stone walls are radiating the chill of the night now, overpowering the lingering heat of the day. She picks up the piece of bread. It has soaked up some of the oil, turning golden and soft at the edges. She takes a bite. The bread is chewy. It requires effort to eat. It is not the soft, airy bread of the wealthy. It is the bread of the earth, gritty and substantial. She chews slowly. There is no need to hurry. No one is waiting for her to finish. The sound of her chewing is the only sound in the room. It is a rhythmic, monotonous sound. She tastes the grain, the yeast, the slight bitterness of the olive oil. It is a simple flavor, unchanged for centuries. It is the taste of survival, the taste of peace. She looks at the cup of water she left on the table. She picks it up and takes a sip to wash down the bread. The water is cool and clean. It mingles with the taste of the oil. She swallows. She places the cup down, clink. She stares at the grain of the wood on the table again. Near the base of the lamp there is a small scratch in the wood, a white line against the dark timber. She runs her fingernail along the scratch. It is shallow. Perhaps it was made by a knife years ago or a dropped utensil. It is a scar on the furniture, a record of a past moment that has been forgotten. She traces it back and forth. Scritchy, scritch. Outside, the wind shifts. It changes direction, blowing now from the north. It carries a different sound, the rustling of the cypress trees in the garden. The branches sway, brushing against each other with a dry, whispering sound. Hiss, swish, hiss. It sounds like the sea, though the sea is miles away. It is a calming, repetitive noise, a lullaby from the trees. She finishes the bread. She wipes her fingers on the cloth napkin. She looks at her hands. There is a small smudge of flour on her thumb. She rubs it off. The boredom of the night is a physical weight. It sits on her shoulders, heavy and soft. It is not an unpleasant weight. It is the weight of security. To be bored is to be safe. It means there is no fire to fight, no sickness to tend, no stranger at the gate. It is a luxury, this emptiness of time. She leans her head back against the top of the chair. She stares up at the ceiling. The beams are dark, almost invisible in the gloom above the lamp's reach. She knows they are there. She knows the spacing of them. She counts them in her mind, visualizing them in the darkness. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thick oak beams holding up the roof, holding off the sky. She closes her eyes again. She listens to the house. Somewhere deep in the structure of the building, a mouse skitters across the floor. Scritch, scratch, scritch. It is a quick, sharp sound, then silence. The mouse freezes, sensing the presence of the human. She does not move. She does not react. After a moment, the sound resumes. Scritch, scratch. The mouse moves on, fading into the distance. It is just another life in the house, another heart beating in the dark. She thinks of the morning. It seems very far away. The sun is on the other side of the world. Here, it is the time of shadows. She opens her eyes and looks at the oil lamp again. The flame has consumed more of the wick. The charred black part is longer now. The light seems a fraction dimmer, or perhaps her eyes are just growing heavier. She watches the base of the flame, where the blue turns to yellow. It is a constant transformation of matter into energy. She reaches out and touches the base of the lamp. The clay is hot now. The heat has spread from the flame down into the body of the vessel. It burns her fingertips slightly, a sharp reminder of the fire's power. She pulls her hand away. The sensation lingers on her skin, a phantom point of heat. She picks up the small metal pick again. She gently prods the wick, extending it slightly. The flame flares up, brighter for a second, casting a sudden wave of light across her face, illuminating her eyes, her nose, the curve of her mouth. Then it settles back down. She rests her hands in her lap. The wool of her tunic is warm from her body heat. She feels the rise and fall of her own chest. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. There is nothing to think about. The mind clears. Thoughts float by like clouds, formless and drifting. A memory of a bird she saw yesterday, the color of a piece of cloth, the shape of a cloud. They drift in and out, leaving no trace. The silence deepens. It feels as though the city outside has vanished, leaving this room floating alone in a void of quiet. The walls are the edge of the universe. She notices the shadow of the chair legs on the floor. They are long and distorted, stretching out towards the door. They look like the legs of a giant insect. She watches them. They do not move. She is waiting for nothing. She is simply being. She picks up the cup again. She swirls the remaining water. The liquid moves against the sides of the clay cup. Swish, swish. She watches the vortex form in the center, a tiny whirlpool. It spins, catching the light, then slows and stops. The surface becomes glass smooth again. She sets the cup down. She shifts her weight in the chair. Her muscles are relaxed, loose. The tension of the day's labor has dissolved. Her hands, usually busy with spinning, weaving, cleaning, cooking, are now idle. They rest curled on her thighs. They are heavy hands at rest. The room is a container for time. The hours are poured into it like water, filling it up with silence. She looks at the window again. The square of night sky is unchanged. No clouds. No moon visible right now. Just the deep, endless black. The air coming through is definitely colder now. It carries a dampness, the moisture of the night settling on the stones. She pulls her feet back, tucking them under the hem of her tunic to keep them warm. She curls into herself slightly. The chair is a fortress. She breathes in the smell of the room. Lamp oil, old wood, cool stone, the faint scent of the bread she just ate. It is a composite smell, the olfactory signature of her life. Everything is slow. The blood in her veins feels like it is moving slowly. The thoughts in her head are slow. The flame is slow. This is the Roman peace, not the peace of the legions, but the peace of the home, the Pax Romana of the living room. She blinks. Her eyelids are heavy curtains. The world is soft. The edges are fuzzy. She stays there motionless, a statue of flesh and wool, illuminated by a single dying flame. The room remains quiet. The silence has a texture now, thick and velvety, filling the spaces between the furniture and the walls. The woman sits in her chair, the taste of the bread and oil fading from her mouth, replaced by the neutral taste of the cool air. Her hands, resting in her lap, begin to feel the urge for movement, not the heavy labor of the day, but the small, rhythmic motions that settle the mind. Beside her chair, on the floor, sits a basket. It is a round basket, woven from peeled willow branches. The willow has darkened with age to the color of deep chestnut. The rim of the basket is polished smooth where her arm has brushed against it 1,000 times. Inside the basket lies a cloud of wool. She reaches down. Her hand disappears into the shadows near the floor and brushes against the woven wicker. It makes a dry, scratching sound, scritch. She finds the wool. It is raw wool, carded but not yet spun. It is soft, lanolin-rich, slightly greasy to the touch. It smells faintly of the animal, a warm, musky scent of sheep and open pastures that contrasts with the sterile stone of the room. She lifts a handful of the wool. It is light, almost weightless, like holding a piece of a cloud. In the dim light of the lamp it looks gray, but she knows it is a creamy white. She pulls it apart gently. The fibers resist slightly, then separate with a soft, tearing whisper. SHHH. She picks up her distaff. It is a simple stick, a cane reed about the length of her forearm, split at the top to hold the wool. She begins to dress the distaff, wrapping the raw wool around the top, securing it with a ribbon. Her movements are automatic. Her eyes do not need to follow her hands. Her fingers know the tension, the placement, the feel of the fibers. Once the wool is secured, she picks up the spindle. This is the engine of her evening. It is a wooden rod, tapered at both ends, with a round whorl of heavy clay near the bottom to give it weight and momentum. The wood of the spindle is smooth, darkened by the oils from her skin. The clay whorl is cool, dense. She pulls a tuft of wool from the distaff, twisting it between her thumb and forefinger to start the thread. She attaches it to the hook at the top of the spindle. And then the motion begins. She flicks her wrist. The spindle drops. It hangs suspended in the air by the thin thread she is creating. It spins. Whir. It is a low, humming sound, barely audible. The heavy clay whorl keeps it spinning, a blur of motion in the stillness. As it spins, it twists the fibers, turning the loose, fluffy wool into strong, tight thread. She watches the spindle. It rotates perfectly upright, atop dancing on the air. The motion is hypnotic, round and round and round. It catches the light of the oil lamp. The grain of the wood blurs into a single color. The shadow of the spindle on the floor spins with it, a dark ghost mimicking the movement. Her left hand holds the distaff high. Her right hand manages the thread, pinching and releasing, pinching and releasing. It is a dance of fingers, pinch, slide, release. The thread lengthens. The spindle drops lower inch by inch towards the stone floor. When it almost touches the ground, she stops it. She catches the spinning wood in her palm. The rotation ceases instantly. The vibration of the spin transfers into her hand, a buzz of energy that dies away. She winds the new length of thread around the shaft of the spindle. Wind, wind, wind. The sound of the thread layering onto the wood is a soft, rhythmic friction. Then she secures it, flicks her wrist, and the spindle drops again. Whir. This is the rhythm of the night. Drop, spin, wind. Drop, spin, wind. It is a cycle that has no beginning and no end. It is the same cycle her mother performed and her grandmother before that. It is a connection to the past that requires no words, only the silent work of the hands. The light from the lamp casts the shadow of the thread against the wall. It looks like a thin, trembling line, a crack in the plaster that moves and sways. She watches the line. It is fragile, yet it holds the weight of the spindle. The room feels smaller now, focused entirely on this vertical line of thread. The corners of the room have receded further into the dark. The only reality is the wool, the wood, and the flame. She feels the texture of the thread between her fingers. It is slightly rough, uneven in places. She smooths a lump of wool, drafting it out to make the thread consistent. Her focus is absolute but effortless. It is a trance. Time stretches. A minute takes an hour. An hour passes in a minute. The pile of raw wool on the distaff slowly shrinks. The ball of thread on the spindle slowly grows. It is a transfer of order. Chaos becomes line. Fluff becomes structure. Outside, the city is settling deeper into sleep. The faint noises that were present earlier, the distant bark, the wind in the trees, have faded. There is a profound silence now, the kind of silence that rings in the ears. It is a heavy, pressure-filled silence, the weight of the atmosphere pressing down on the roof. She stops for a moment to rub her thumb. The rough wool can be abrasive. She presses her thumb against the smooth fabric of her tunic, soothing the skin. She looks at the lamp. The flame is still steady, though the oil level has dropped further. The pool of oil is a dark, reflective lake, shrinking in its terracotta shores. She thinks about the sheep that bore this wool. She imagines them on a hillside, grazing in the sun, oblivious to the fact that their coat is now here, in a dark room in the city, being spun by a woman who is alone. It is a strange thought, a drift of the mind, irrelevant and fleeting. She starts the spindle again. Whir. The motion creates a tiny breeze. She can feel it against her shin as the spindle descends, a microclimate of moving air in the stagnant room. She closes her eyes, trusting her hands. She listens to the sound of the spin. It changes pitch as the spindle slows down. It starts as a high hum, then lowers to a drone, then a wobble as gravity overcomes momentum. She catches it just before it stops. Her timing is perfect. It is muscle memory honed over decades. She opens her eyes. The room is unchanged. The shadow of the table is still a dark block on the floor. The cup is still where she left it. The crumb of bread she missed is still on the table. She takes a deep breath. The air is dry and dusty. It tastes of the wool now, fibrous and animal. She decides to rest her arm. She places the spindle and distaff on the table. The wood clatters gently against the surface. Clack. The sound is startlingly loud. She lays them down carefully, ensuring the spindle does not roll away. The thread goes slack, draping over the edge of the table like a miniature vine. She massages her right wrist with her left hand. She rubs the joint, the tendons, feeling the warmth of her own skin. Her hands are tired, but it is a good tiredness. It is the feeling of use. She looks at the oil lamp again. The wick is needing attention once more. A small mushroom of carbon has formed on the tip of the flame, causing the light to dim and become more orange. She picks up the metal pick. She is surgical in her precision. She knocks the carbon off. It falls into the oil with a tiny hiss and sinks. The flame brightens, standing taller, whitening the light. The shadows in the room sharpen again. She leans forward, resting her elbows on the table and stares directly into the flame. She watches the blue base, the way it clings to the wick. It is a tiny, violent reaction contained in a domestic space. It is fire, the same element that burns down cities, yet here it is tame, serving her, keeping the darkness at bay. She brings her hand close to the side of the lamp. She can feel the radiant heat. It warms her palm. She stays like that for a long time, soaking up the warmth, motionless. The silence is broken by a sound from the street. It is the sound of heavy boots on stone. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The pace is measured, slow, rhythmic. It is the vigils, the night watchmen patrolling the neighborhood. They carry lanterns and buckets, watching for fire, watching for trouble. She listens to them pass. They do not stop. They do not speak. The sound of their boots grows louder as they approach the house, reaches a peak, and then fades away as they continue down the street. Crunch, 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 fading into nothing. She is alone again. The patrol brings a sense of security. The city is being watched. She is safe inside her walls. She sits back in the chair. The wood feels hard against her spine. She shifts, finding a softer spot. She pulls the shawl up over her head, creating a hood. It muffles the sound of the room, making her breath sound louder in her own ears. It creates a private space within the private space. She feels cocooned, wrapped in layers of wool and silence. She looks at the mosaic floor again. She counts the tiles in a single square of the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20. Small black stones cut by hand, laid by hand. Someone knelt here to make this floor. Now she sits here and looks at it. Her eyes trace the grout lines between the stones. They are gray, filled with the dust of years. She feels a yawn coming. It starts deep in her chest, a slow expansion of the lungs. She opens her mouth, stretching her jaw. She yawns, a long, silent exhale. Her eyes water slightly. The tear film blurs the light of the lamp, turning the flame into a starburst of streaks. She blinks, clearing her vision. The drowsiness is heavier now. It pulls at her eyelids. It slows her thoughts to a crawl. The spinning has done its work. It has calmed the mind, smoothed out the worries, prepared the body for rest. She looks at the spindle lying on the table. The thread she spun is a small white mound wrapped around the wood. It is progress. It is something made from nothing. It is enough for tonight. She does not move to leave yet. The transition from waking to sleeping is a journey, and she is only halfway there. She sits in the borderland, in the quiet, boring, safe space of the night. She notices a small draft coming from under the door. It moves the dust on the floor just slightly. A tiny gray tumbleweed of lint rolls an inch and stops. She watches it. It does not move again. The house creaks. A timber in the roof cools and contracts. Tock, a single hollow sound. Then silence returns, rushing back in to fill the void left by the noise. She rests her chin in her hand. Her skin feels cool. Her eyes remain half open, unfocused. She is looking at everything and nothing. She is simply present, a breathing statue in a room of stone and shadow. The world outside is vast and complex, full of emperors and wars and trade routes and gods. But in here, the world is small. It is just a chair, a table, a lamp, and a woman, and that is all it needs to be. The wool is spun, the thread is wound. The work of the hands is finished for the night. The woman sits for a moment longer, looking at the spindle resting on the table. It is a motionless object now, its purpose fulfilled. The energy she poured into it has settled into the tight twist of the fibers. The room seems to accept this conclusion. The air is still. The shadows are stationary. She places her hands on the edge of the table and pushes herself up. The chair scrapes backward again, a low, dragging sound of wood on stone. Uruk. It is a sound of finality. She will not sit in that chair again tonight. She stands tall, feeling the blood move down into her feet. She rotates her shoulders, working out the stiffness of the posture she held while spinning. A small pop in her neck, audible only to her. She takes a deep breath. The air is definitely colder now. The warmth of the day has completely evaporated, replaced by the damp chill of the Roman night. She walks slowly across the room to a small wooden chest against the wall. The chest is made of cedar, and even after years, it still holds a faint, resinous scent that repels moths. The wood is dark, almost black in this light. She kneels down. Her knees touch the stone floor. It is cold. She ignores it. She lifts the lid of the chest. The hinges are made of leather, so there is no squeak, only a soft thud of leather folding. Inside, folded neatly, are linens and toiletries. She reaches in and pulls out a small polished metal disc, a mirror, and a comb made of bone. She closes the lid, thump. She stands up and carries these items back to the table, placing them within the circle of light cast by the oil lamp. The mirror is made of bronze, polished to a high sheen on one side. It is not like the glass mirrors of the future. The reflection it gives is golden, warm, and slightly hazy. It softens the world. She props the mirror up against the water jug. She looks at her reflection. In the dim orange light, her face is a landscape of shadows and highlights. She sees her eyes, dark and tired. She sees the line of her jaw. She does not look with vanity. She looks to ensure that she is still herself, that the day has not worn her away completely. She reaches up to her hair. It is pinned up in a simple bun at the back of her head, held in place by two long hairpins made of bone. She pulls the first pin. It slides out with a whisper of friction against the hair. She places it on the table. Click. She pulls the second pin. Slide, click. The tension in her scalp releases. The bun unravels. Her hair falls down. It is long, reaching past her shoulders. It falls like a dark curtain framing her face. She shakes her head slightly, letting the strands settle. It feels heavy and warm against her neck, a blanket of her own making. She picks up the comb. It is a simple object, pale white bone with fine teeth cut into one side. She runs her thumb over the teeth. Zip, zip, zip. A tiny, percussive sound. She begins to comb her hair. She starts at the ends, working out the tangles of the day. The sound of the comb passing through her hair is a rhythmic, dry rustle. Swish, swish. She moves the comb higher to the mid-lengths. The motion is slow and repetitive. She tilts her head to the side, allowing her hair to hang freely. The comb glides down. The static electricity builds slightly, causing a few strands to cling to the bone. She moves to the roots. She drags the comb from her forehead over the crown of her head all the way down to the ends. It is a long, soothing stroke. It massages the scalp. It aligns the hair. Stroke, pause, stroke, pause. The rhythm is hypnotic. It is the rhythm of self-care. There is no audience. There is no hurry. If she hits a snag, she stops, gently works it loose with her fingers, and continues. The patience she showed the wool, she now shows herself. She watches the motion in the bronze mirror. The reflection mimics her. The hand goes up, the hand goes down. The shadow of her arm moves across the wall behind her, a large, dark shape swaying in the candlelight. She counts the strokes in her mind, not for any purpose, but just to give her mind a track to run on. 10, 11, 12. Each stroke smooths away a little more of the day's chaos. The hair becomes sleek, reflecting the lamp's flame in a vertical streak of gold. She switches hands. She combs the other side. The sound is the same. The feeling is the same. It is a symmetrical boredom, perfectly balanced. Outside, the silence of the street is absolute. The city feels empty, as if everyone has vanished, leaving only the stone buildings and the night sky. There is no wind now. The trees are still. The world has stopped breathing for a moment. She puts the comb down, clack. She gathers her hair in her hands. It is smooth now, orderly. She twists it loosely, just enough to keep it off her face for the next task, but she does not pin it. She lets it hang in a loose rope over one shoulder. She looks at the small bowl of water on the table. She dips her fingers into it. The water is cold. It sends a shock through her fingertips. She rubs her wet fingers over her eyelids. The cold water feels good against the tired skin. It wakes her up just enough to finish her routine. She picks up a small piece of sponge, natural sea sponge, rough and porous. She dips it into the water. It absorbs the liquid, becoming heavy and soft. She squeezes it out. Sploosh, a drip, drip, drip. The water falls back into the bowl. She wipes her face with the damp sponge. Forehead, cheeks, chin, neck. The rough texture of the sponge scrubs gently. It removes the dust of the city, the smoke of the lamp, the sweat of the afternoon. It is a ritual of purification. She is washing away the day. She moves slowly. There is no scrubbing, just a gentle wiping motion. She cleans behind her ears. She cleans her throat. She rinses the sponge in the bowl. The water clouds slightly. She squeezes it out again and places it on the table. She reaches for a tiny clay pot no bigger than a plum. It has a lid. She opens it. Inside is a thick, scented ointment. It smells of rose and beeswax. It is a sweet, heavy scent, the smell of a summer garden preserved in fat. She dips the tip of her pinky finger into the ointment. She takes a tiny amount. She rubs it between her palms. The heat of her hands melts the beeswax, turning it into a fragrant oil. She presses her palms to her face. She massages the oil into her skin. Upward strokes on the cheeks, circular motions on the forehead. The scent of roses fills the small sphere of air around her. It masks the smell of the burning lamp oil. For a moment, she is transported to a garden, surrounded by flowers. But the garden is a memory. The reality is the stone room. She massages her hands, working the remaining oil into her cuticles, into the rough skin of her knuckles. She intertwines her fingers, squeezing her hands together. The oil makes her skin shine in the lamplight. She sits there for a moment, hands covering her face, breathing in the scent of the rose. It is a moment of pure sensory experience. Warmth, scent, darkness. She lowers her hands. She feels clean. She feels ready for sleep. But there is one more task, the lamp. She looks at the oil lamp. It has burned faithfully all evening. The oil is very low now. The flame is smaller, huddled close to the nozzle. It is time to let it go. But she cannot be in total darkness yet. She must navigate to the sleeping area. She picks up the lamp. The clay is hot. She holds it by the handle, keeping her fingers away from the body of the vessel. She stands up. The shadows in the room swing wildly as she moves. The table leg's shadow spins across the floor. The shadow of the water jug stretches and collapses. She controls the light. She is the sun of this small solar system. She walks towards the doorway that leads to the cubiculum, the small bedroom. It is little more than an alcove off the main room, separated by a heavy curtain. She moves with the slow, shuffling gait of someone who is tired. Her sandals drag slightly on the floor. Scuff, scuff. She reaches the curtain. The fabric is thick wool, dyed a dark red that looks black in this light. She pushes it aside with her free hand. The curtain rings slide on the metal rod above. Ching, ching, ching. A metallic, musical sound that ripples through the silence. She steps into the bedroom. The air here is even stiller than in the main room. It is a small space, dominated by the bed. The bed is a simple wooden frame, raised off the floor on legs. The mattress is a sack filled with straw and wool, resting on rope webbing. It is not soft by modern standards, but it is familiar. She places the lamp on a small niche in the wall designed for it. The light floods the small room. The walls here are bare plaster, white and clean. There are no distractions. This is a room for sleeping and nothing else. She turns back to the curtain and lets it fall closed. The main room is cut off. The world has shrunk again. Now the world is only 6 feet by 8 feet. She sits on the edge of the bed. The mattress crunches softly, the sound of dried straw compressing. Crunch, rustle. It is the sound of comfort. She looks down at her sandals. They are leather strapped around her ankles. She reaches down. Her fingers fumble slightly with the knot. It is tight. She works at it patiently. One loop loosens, then the other. She pulls the strap free. She slides the sandal off her foot. She places it on the floor. It makes no sound. She repeats the process with the other foot. Her bare feet touch the floor. The stone is cold, but there is a small rug made of sheepskin beside the bed. She steps onto the rug. The wool is soft and warm between her toes. She wiggles her toes, stretching them. They have been bound in leather all day. The freedom feels good. She stands up one last time to remove her outer tunic. She unfastens the belt at her waist. The woven cord falls to the floor. She pulls the heavy wool tunic up and over her head. She folds it methodically. Even in her tiredness, she does not throw it. She folds it into a square and places it on the chest at the foot of the bed. She is left in her undertunic, a lighter, softer garment of linen. It is white, ghost-like in the dim light. It hangs loosely around her body. She shivers. The air is cold on her bare arms. It is time to get under the covers. She climbs into the bed. The straw mattress shifts under her weight, conforming to the shape of her body. She pulls the heavy wool blankets up. 1 layer, 2 layers. They are heavy, weighing her down, pressing her into the mattress. She lies on her back. She looks at the ceiling. It is low here, close to her face. The lamp is still burning in the niche. She turns her head to look at it. It is the last companion. She reaches out. Her hand hovers near the flame. She does not blow it out immediately. She watches it one last time. It flickers, sensing the end. She takes a small metal cap that hangs on a chain from the lampstand. She lowers it over the flame. The darkness does not fall, it rushes in. It fills the room instantly, solid and absolute. The orange glow vanishes. For a moment her eyes see nothing, just the black void. Then, slowly, the afterimage of the flame fades from her vision. She retracts her hand under the covers. She is alone in the dark. But the sensory experience is not over. Now, the ears take over. In the darkness, the sounds of the house are magnified. She hears the settling of the straw in the mattress. Rustle. She hears her own breathing, loud and rhythmic. In, out. She hears the wind outside, which has picked up again. It moans softly around the corner of the house. Ooh. She feels the warmth of her own body getting trapped by the wool blankets. The cold sheets begin to warm up. A cocoon of heat forms around her. She rolls onto her side. The straw crunches. She tucks her hand under her cheek. The day is officially over. The Roman Empire continues to exist outside these walls, the guards on the walls, the ships in the harbor, the scribes in the palace. But here, in this room, there is only sleep. She closes her eyes. The darkness behind her eyelids is the same as the darkness in the room. She waits for sleep. It does not come instantly. It approaches slowly, like a tide rising. Her thoughts begin to fragment. The image of the spindle, the smell of the rose oil, the taste of the bread. They swirl together, losing their meaning, becoming abstract shapes. Her breathing deepens. The rhythm slows down even further. The house protects her. The stone walls are thick. The door is barred. The gods are in their shrine. The ancestors are watching. She is just a breathing space in the dark. Peace, quiet, nothingness. The flame is gone, but the memory of it remains. For a few minutes, the smell of the extinguished wick hangs in the small air of the cubiculum. It is a sharp, acrid scent, burnt linen and hot oil, that cuts through the sweetness of the rose balm on her face. It does not linger long. The draft from the main room, sliding under the heavy curtain, slowly dilutes it, pushing the smoke up towards the rafters where it dissipates into the ancient dust of the house. She lies perfectly still. The darkness is not empty, it is a physical weight. It presses gently against her eyelids. Without the visual input of the room, without the corners, the furniture, the color of the walls, her other senses wake up fully to take watch. The bed beneath her is alive with texture. The mattress, a large linen sack stuffed tightly with straw and dried reeds, has a landscape of its own. It is not flat. There are small hills and valleys where the stuffing has shifted over months of sleep. Her hip finds a hollow, her shoulder rests on a small rise. It is a familiar geography. Every time she moves, the straw whispers. Crinkle, hush, rustle. It is the sound of dry fields, of summer harvests long past, now trapped inside the fabric to comfort the night. She shifts her leg. The wool blanket is heavy and coarse. It is a rough weave, spun from the fleece of mountain sheep. It scratches slightly against her bare ankle, a sensation that is not painful but grounding. It reminds her of where she is. Underneath the wool, the linen sheet is smooth and cool, slowly warming up from the heat of her skin. The contrast between the rough wool above and the smooth linen below is the tactile definition of her world right now. As she listens, Rome is never truly silent. The city changes its voice at night. During the day, it is the voice of people, shouting, talking, bartering, arguing. At night, the people retreat, and the city becomes a machine of stone and wood. Far away, distance is hard to judge in the dark. There is a low, rhythmic rumble. It sounds like thunder that refuses to break, or the grinding of millstones deep underground. It is the wagons. By the decree of the emperors, heavy transport wagons are forbidden from the streets during the daylight hours to prevent congestion. And so, the night belongs to the logistics of the empire. Now, while the citizens sleep, the supplies arrive. Timber, stone, grain, oil, wine. The lifeblood of the city moves in the dark. She hears the distant clatter of iron-rimmed wheels on basalt paving stones. Rumble-clack, rumble-clack. It is a continuous drone-like sound. It does not disturb her. It is the heartbeat of Rome. It is a reassuring sound that means the city is functioning. The grain is coming. The building materials for the new temple are moving. The empire is working so she can rest. The sound rises and falls like waves on a shore. Occasionally, a wagon passes closer, perhaps 2 streets away. She can distinguish the individual sounds then. The heavy thud of a wooden axle. The slow, plodding rhythm of oxen hooves, clop, 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 striking the stone. The low voice of a driver urging the beasts forward, a mumble in the dark. Then the wagon passes. The sound recedes, sinking back into the general hum of the night. She is safe in her bed. The wagons will not come down her small street. They stick to the main thoroughfares, the arteries of the city. She is in a capillary, quiet and still. The temperature in the room is dropping. The stone walls, having lost their stored heat, now radiate a subtle chill. She feels it on the tip of her nose, the only part of her face not covered by the warmth of her skin or the blanket. She burrows deeper. She pulls the wool blanket up to her chin. The fabric covers her ears, muffling the wagon sounds, turning them into a soft vibration. She curls her toes. The warmth of the bed has finally reached the bottom of the mattress. Her feet, which were cold on the stone floor, now relax. The tension in her arches releases. Her breathing changes. It was controlled before, deep and conscious. Now it becomes automatic. Her chest rises and falls with a shallow, easy rhythm. In, out, in, out. There is a slight pause at the top of each breath and a slight pause at the bottom. A suspension of life, repeated 12 times a minute. She stares up into the dark. Her eyes are open, but they see nothing. There is no difference between her eyes being open or closed. The blackness is absolute. It is a velvet curtain. Occasionally, her mind creates phantom lights, swirling patterns of purple and green, the visual noise of a brain deprived of input. She watches these phantoms. They bloom and fade, bloom and fade. They mean nothing. A dog barks somewhere in the neighborhood. It is a sharp staccato sound. Woof, woof, then silence. Perhaps it saw a cat, perhaps it saw a shadow. It does not matter. The silence swallows the bark instantly. She thinks of the door to the street. It is solid oak. The bar is iron-hard wood. The lock is complex. She traces the path from her bed to the door in her mind. Out of the bedroom, through the curtain, across the mosaic floor, past the table, past the impluvium to the vestibule. It is a long way. She is deep inside the shell of the house. She turns onto her other side. The movement is slow, like moving through water. The straw mattress crunches loudly in the quiet room, crunch, but the sound dies immediately. She settles. She adjusts the pillow. The pillow is firm, stuffed with wool. She punches it gently to create a hollow for her head. Her ear presses against the fabric. Now she can hear the sound of her own blood. It is a whoosh-whoosh sound pulsing in her ear against the pillow. It is the sound of her own existence. It is steady. It is slow. The boredom is profound. There is absolutely nothing to do. There is no book to read, no screen to watch, no music to listen to. There is only the sensation of lying horizontal in a dark box of stone, and it is delicious. It is a luxury. To simply lie there and feel the weight of the blanket is enough. Her mind begins to wander, untethered from the logic of the day. She thinks of the color blue, not the sky, but the blue of a painted wall she saw once in a villa, a deep, aquatic blue. The color fills her mind. Then it changes to the yellow of the grain, then the red of the fire. The colors float by, abstract and silent. She feels a tiny itch on her arm. She ignores it. It fades. She feels the weight of her hair. Even though it is loose, she can feel the mass of it spread out on the pillow behind her. It is a warm halo. The house settles again. A distinct creak comes from the roof beams. It is the wood contracting in the cold. It sounds like a knuckle cracking. It is a friendly sound. It means the house is reacting to the night just as she is. She wonders briefly if it will rain. The air felt damp earlier. If it rains, the sound will change. The water will drum on the roof tiles. Tap, tap, tap. It will run into the impluvium in the main hall, splashing into the catch basin. Splish, splash. But for now, it is dry. The distant rumble of the wagons seems to be getting quieter. Perhaps the main convoy has passed. Or perhaps she is just sinking deeper into the mattress, moving further away from the waking world. The sound is now just a hum, a vibration in the floor that she feels more than she hears. She relaxes her jaw. She didn't realize she was holding tension there. Her mouth opens slightly. Her tongue rests on the floor of her mouth. The muscles in her face go slack. The mask of the day falls away. In this darkness, she has no age. She has no status. She is not a mother, a wife, a daughter, or a Roman. She is just a warm body in a cold room. She feels the rhythm of the sleep approaching. It is a heaviness that starts in the limbs and moves inward. Her hands feel like lead weights resting on the mattress. If she wanted to lift her arm now, it would take enormous effort. She does not want to lift her arm. She lets go of the last thread of thought. The thought was about the olive oil jar. Was it full? It doesn't matter. It will be there in the morning. The darkness seems to expand. The walls of the room feel like they are moving outwards, creating a vast, infinite space of black. She is floating in the center of it. She takes a deeper breath, a sigh that shudders slightly as it leaves her lungs. Everything is slow, everything is heavy, everything is silent. The only movement is the dust settling on the floor in the other room, invisible and soundless. She is on the threshold. The waking world is a distant memory, a shore she is pushed off from. She is drifting on the dark water of the night. The woman is asleep. It did not happen with a sudden drop. It was a gradual fading, like a path disappearing into high grass. One moment she was aware of the scratch of the wool blanket, and the next, the sensation dissolved into the general hum of unconsciousness. Her breathing has shifted. It is no longer the controlled breath of the waking hours, nor the relaxed breath of rest. It is the deep, rhythmic, automatic respiration of the body maintaining itself. It is a slow, soft sound, a gentle rasp of air entering the nose, a long, quiet exhalation through slightly parted lips. H-H-H-N-N-N-N, H-Hu-Wu. She has left the room. Her mind is elsewhere in the shapeless, timeless void of deep sleep, but the room remains. The cubiculum is now a container of stillness. Without the woman's conscious presence, the objects in the room seem to settle even more firmly into their places. The bronze mirror on the table in the other room is dark, reflecting nothing but the black air. The comb lies next to it, its bone teeth pointing towards the ceiling. The spindle rests on the table, the thread wound tight, holding the potential energy of the evening's work in suspension. The temperature continues to drop. The stone of the house is a heat sink. It absorbed the sun all day, and now it releases it back into the sky, pulling the warmth out of the air inside. The cold creeps across the floor. It is a heavy, low-lying cold. It settles in the corners. It pools under the bed. A draft moves through the house. It enters through the small, high window in the main room, flows down the wall, curls around the furniture, and drifts under the curtain into the bedroom. It carries the scent of the cooling city. It is a complex scent: wet stone, the mineral tang of the river Tiber, the faint, dusty smell of dried pine needles from the hills. It washes over the room, invisible and silent. The curtain stirs, swish, just a fraction of an inch. The heavy wool fabric ripples, then hangs still again. Outside, the moon has risen high enough to touch the city. It is a waning moon, not full, shedding a pale, milky light. It does not reach into the bedroom. But in the main room, a single beam of moonlight finds its way through the window. It strikes the floor. It is a perfect rectangle of silver on the black mosaic. Dust motes float in this column of moonlight. They move slowly, suspended in the air currents. They turn and drift, sparkling briefly when they hit the light, then vanishing again into the shadow. There is no one to see them. They dance for no audience. The house creaks again. This time it is a different sound, a sharp crack from the wooden shutter on the window. The wood is drying out in the night air. The sound echoes through the empty main room, bouncing off the stone walls. It does not wake the woman. It is part of the house's vocabulary, a familiar noise that her brain filters out as safe. Far away near the river, an owl hoots. Hoo-oo-hoo-oo. It is the Scops owl, common in the gardens of Rome. The sound is mournful and repetitive. It carries for miles in the quiet air. The city of Rome is vast, a sprawling organism of brick and marble. But at this hour it is reduced to its skeleton. The forums are empty. The temples are locked. The great baths are still, the water in the pools perfectly flat, reflecting the stars. The noise of the millions has evaporated. Back in the room, the woman shifts. The dreamless sleep releases her for a second. She turns over. The movement is heavy. She pulls the blanket tighter, an instinctual reaction to the cooling air. She murmurs something, a nonsense sound, a fragment of a word, and then sinks back down. Her cheek presses against the pillow. Her hair is spread out like a dark fan. The straw in the mattress crunches and then settles. Rustle, crunch. Silence returns. On the floor near the foot of the bed, a small beetle is making its way across the stone. It is a darkling beetle, black and slow. It moves with a plodding determination. It encounters the leg of the bed. It stops. It touches the wood with its antennae. It considers the obstacle. Then it turns and continues its journey along the wall. Its movement is soundless. It is a tiny life navigating the giant world of the humans. The air in the room feels cleaner now. The smell of the lamp oil is almost gone, replaced by the crisp, cool scent of the night. It is easy to breathe. The air feels thin and pure. Time is irrelevant here. There is no water clock dripping. There is no sun dial casting a shadow. There is only the sequence of moments. The beetle moves, the dust falls, the sleeper breathes. The weight of the Roman Empire is lifted for these few hours. The taxes, the laws, the social standing, none of it exists in the dark. There is only biology and physics, the body repairing itself, the heat transferring, the gravity holding everything down. The moonlight in the other room shifts. As the moon moves across the sky, the rectangle of light on the floor moves with it. It creeps across the mosaic inch by inch. It touches the leg of the table. It climbs up the wood. It highlights the grain of the timber, turning the brown wood to silver. It touches the glass jug of olive oil. The oil inside glows faintly, a dull, translucent green. It looks like a jewel in the dark. The silence is thick. It is not just the absence of noise, it is a presence. It feels like cotton wool stuffed into the ears. It is a protective layer separating the house from the world. The woman's hand has escaped the blanket. It rests on the pillow near her face. Her fingers are relaxed, curled slightly. The skin is pale in the darkness. The calluses she earned from the day's work are invisible. It is just a hand resting. Suddenly, a gust of wind outside shakes the trees in the courtyard. The leaves rustle loudly. Shhhshhshhshhh. It sounds like a sudden rain shower, but it is dry. The sound rushes past the window and dies away. The woman does not stir. She is deep in the delta of sleep. Her heart beats slowly. Thump, thump, thump. It pumps the blood through her veins, keeping the machine running while the captain is away. The room waits. It waits for the dawn, which is still hours away. It is patient. It has stood for 50 years, and it will stand for 50 more. It holds the night well. There is a sense of profound neutrality. The universe is not kind, and it is not cruel. It is simply present. The stone is hard. The wool is warm. The dark is black. The beetle finds a crack in the plaster near the floor and disappears inside. It has found its own home. The rectangle of moonlight moves off the table and back onto the floor. The moment of illumination has passed. The table returns to being a dark shape in the gloom. Everything is static, a still life painting of the ancient world. The woman breathes, in, out. The cycle continues. The woman sleeps on. The rhythm of her breath is the metronome of the room, a steady, soft cadence that marks the passing of the seconds. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. It is the most fundamental sound of life, persisting even when consciousness has fled. Her body is heavy, sunk deep into the straw mattress, anchored by gravity to the frame of the bed. While she rests, the house continues its silent vigil. Beyond the heavy wool curtain of the bedroom in the main central hall of the house, the atrium, the night has fully taken hold. This is the heart of the Roman home, a space of air and light during the day, but now it is a cavern of shadows. The roof is open in the center, a square aperture known as the impluvium. Through this opening, the night sky looks directly down into the house. The sky is a deep, velvety black, sprinkled with the faint dust of stars. They are distant and cold, their light taking centuries to reach the tiled floor. Directly below the opening lies the impluvium, a shallow sunken pool designed to catch rainwater. Tonight, there is no rain, but the basin still holds a few inches of water from a shower 3 days ago. The water is perfectly still. It acts as a mirror, a dark, liquid glass embedded in the floor. As the moon climbs higher, its angle shifts, and for a brief window of time, its reflection is caught in the pool. A perfect, trembling circle of white light floats on the surface of the black water. Nothing moves the water. There is no wind down here in the sheltered core of the house. The reflection is sharp at the edges. It looks solid, as if one could reach down and pick up the moon like a silver coin. Then condensation forms on the terracotta tiles of the roof edge above. The night air, cooling rapidly, deposits its moisture on the clay. A single drop grows heavy. It hangs from the lip of a tile, defying gravity for a long moment. It swells, gathering weight. Finally, it falls. Blip! It hits the center of the impluvium. The sound is tiny, a delicate musical note in the vast silence. Plip. The impact shatters the stillness of the water. Ripples radiate outward from the center, perfect concentric circles expanding towards the stone rim of the basin. The reflection of the moon is broken. It fractures into a dozen dancing shards of light, swirling and oscillating. The silver coin dissolves into liquid mercury. The ripples travel to the edge, bounce off the marble lining and return toward the center, crossing over each other, creating a complex lattice of interference. The water agitates, restless in its stone bed. Slowly, very slowly, the energy dissipates. The ripples grow smaller, lazier. The shards of the moon begin to coalesce again. The surface smooths out. The light steadies. The mirror reforms. Silence returns to the atrium. The scent in this part of the house is different from the bedroom. It smells of damp stone and cool water. It is a mineral scent, clean and hard. There is no warmth here. The tiles are cold to the touch. If the woman were to walk here now, the cold would sting her bare feet. In the corner of the atrium stands a wooden chest bound with iron straps. Inside are the family's winter cloaks and extra linens. The iron straps are cold and black. The wood is dark. A shadow from a pillar falls across it, cutting it in half visually. Near the entrance to the house, the fauces, the darkness is thickest. This is the passage to the street. The heavy front door is barred. The wood of the door is thick oak, studded with bronze nails. It is a barrier against the world. Through the tiny cracks around the door frame, a very faint draft whispers. It is a high-pitched, thin sound, the wind forcing its way through a needle-eye gap. It brings with it the smell of the street dust, dry dung, the faint smoke of a distant watchfire. Back in the bedroom, the woman shifts again. The dream she is in changes. Her eyelids flutter rapidly for a moment, REM sleep, watching scenes that exist only in her mind. Perhaps she is walking in a market. Perhaps she is spinning wool in the sun. Whatever it is silent to the observer. She moves her arm and her hand touches the cold wall next to the bed. The sensation of the cold plaster against her warm skin triggers a reflex. She pulls her arm back instantly, tucking it under the warm wool blanket. She makes a small sound, a soft grunt of adjustment. MMMPH. She settles back into the warmth. The disturbance is gone. The ecosystem of the bed is a microclimate. Under the blankets, the air is trapped and heated to body temperature. It is humid and cozy. Outside the blankets, the room is approaching the lowest temperature of the night. The contrast is sharp. It makes the bed feel like a fortress. On the small table in the bedroom, the oil lamp stands cold and dark. The soot on the nozzle has cooled and hardened. The smell of the extinguished wick is gone now, completely replaced by the neutral scent of the room. Time stretches out. There is no way to measure it. Is it midnight? Is it the third watch? The fourth? It does not matter. The night is a single, continuous block of existence. Outside, the wind dies down completely. The rustling of the leaves in the courtyard stops. The silence deepens. It becomes heavy, pressing against the eardrums. It is a rare silence, free of the mechanical hum of the modern world. There are no refrigerators humming, no distant traffic drones, no airplanes overhead. There is only the earth and the stone. The silence is so deep, you could hear a pin drop in the next room. In the kitchen, the embers in the stove have finally turned to gray ash. The heat is gone. The darkness there is absolute. A small cricket which had been silent while the heat was intense now chirps. Once, chirp. It waits. Chirp. It is a lonely sound. It repeats with mechanical precision. Chirp, chirp, chirp. It is the only clock in the house. The woman does not hear it. She is too far away, buried under layers of sleep and wool. She rolls onto her back again. Her face is turned towards the ceiling. Her breathing changes pitch slightly as her position opens her airway. It becomes deeper, a long sighing intake of air. Ha! The moonlight in the atrium has moved. It has left the water pool. The moon has passed over the opening in the roof. The beam of light climbs the wall on the opposite side, illuminating a fresco painted on the plaster. The fresco depicts a garden scene: green trees, red birds, blue sky. In the daylight, it is vibrant. In the moonlight, it is ghostly. The colors are drained away, leaving only shades of gray. The painted birds look like shadows. The painted trees look like smoke. The light travels across the painted leaves, highlighting them for a few minutes before moving on. The garden returns to the dark. The house feels immense in the quiet. During the day, filled with people and noise, it feels small and crowded. At night, empty and silent, the spaces seem to expand. The ceiling feels higher. The corridors feel longer. The woman's foot sticks out from the bottom of the blanket again. This time, she does not pull it back. The cool air touches her soul. It is a refreshing sensation. Her body regulates its heat, using the cool air to balance the warmth of the covers. She is perfectly still now, a statue of a sleeper. The sense of safety is absolute. The walls are thick Roman concrete faced with brick. They are impenetrable. The door is locked. The city patrol walks the streets. There is nothing to fear. The boredom of the situation is its greatest virtue. There is no drama here, no sudden noises, no intruders, just the slow, steady procession of the night. The dust motes in the atrium have settled. The air is clear. The cricket in the kitchen stops chirping. Silence reclaims the space. The woman's chest rises. The woman's chest falls. It is a slow, oceanic rhythm. The tide of breath coming in, the tide of breath going out. The night is halfway done. The deepest part of the darkness is here. The time when the world is most still. The time when the Roman Empire sleeps. The night has deepened. It has reached that heavy, motionless hour that sits exactly between the fading of the last day and the suggestion of the next. It is the dead center of the darkness. In the cubiculum, the woman remains in the same position. She is lying on her back now, one arm cast out over the wool blanket, the other resting across her stomach. Her breathing is so quiet it is almost imperceptible. The rhythm has slowed to the absolute minimum required for life. It is a shallow, delicate sipping of the air. The room is darker now than it was an hour ago. Outside, a bank of low clouds has drifted in from the west, rolling over the 7 hills and swallowing the moon. The silver rectangle of light that was traveling across the atrium floor has vanished. The faint ambient glow that leaked through the high window has been snuffed out. Now the darkness is total. It is a thick, velvet blackness that fills the eyes and the mind. If the woman were to open her eyes now, she would see nothing. No outline of the door, no shape of the lamp, no ceiling. She is floating in a void of pure comfort. The temperature has stabilized at its lowest point. The stone walls have finished releasing their heat and are now cool blocks of mass, holding the air still. The cold is not biting. It is a crisp, dry coolness that feels clean against the skin. The wool blanket is doing its work. It traps the body heat, creating a warm microclimate around the sleeper. The fibers of the wool, coarse and thick, interlock to hold the air. It is a heavy warmth, a weight that presses down gently, anchoring her to the bed. It feels like a protective hand resting on her. She moves her head slightly on the pillow. The sound of hair rubbing against the linen pillowcase is a soft shhhshhh. It is the sound of dry grass rustling in a breeze. Her hair has spread out, a dark halo on the white linen, tangled and loose. A single strand falls across her cheek. It tickles slightly, but she does not wake. She merely twitches her nose, a tiny, unconscious movement, and settles again. Outside the house, the city of Rome is under the blanket of clouds. The stars are gone. The sky is a uniform dark gray. Down at the river, the Tiber flows. It is a dark, oily snake winding through the city. The water moves silently against the stone embankments. Swirl, lap, swirl. Mud and silt from the mountains are carried out to the sea in the dark. There are barges tied up along the wharves, their ropes creaking as the current tugs at them. Creak, groan. The wood of the boats rubs against the stone of the docks. It is a slow, mournful sound, heard by no one but the rats scurrying along the ropes. But here, in the house on the quiet street, the river is miles away. Here, there is no water sound. There is only the dry silence of stone. The woman dreams. It is a quiet dream, formless and vague. It is not a story, but a sensation. The sensation of floating, the sensation of warmth. There is no conflict in this dream. No voices, just a long, smooth expanse of time. Her fingers, resting on the blanket, twitch once, a nerve firing in sleep. Then they relax again, curling inward like the petals of a flower closing at night. The silence in the room is layered. There is the silence of the air, motionless and still. There is the silence of the objects, the lamp, the chest, the sandals on the floor, waiting patiently in the dark. And there is the silence of the mind, empty of thoughts, empty of worries. A small draft finds its way under the door again. It stirs the dust on the floor. It moves a tiny piece of straw that fell from the mattress. The straw rolls an inch, scritch. It stops. The air in the room smells of sleep. It is a warm, musky scent, the smell of wool, of skin, of breath. It is the intimate smell of a human life at rest. The house feels solid. It is built of Roman concrete, opus cementitium, a mixture of volcanic ash and lime that grows stronger with time. These walls have stood for decades. They have seen thousands of nights like this. They are indifferent to the sleeper, yet they shelter her. They block the wind. They hold up the roof. They define the space of safety. The woman sighs. It is a long, shuddering exhale that empties her lungs completely. Ha. She turns onto her side, facing the wall. The straw mattress crunches loudly under her hip. Crunch, a sudden explosion of sound in the quiet. Then, as she settles, the straw compresses and goes silent. The bed molds itself to her new shape. She pulls her knees up slightly, curling into a fetal position. It is the primal posture of sleep, the shape of the beginning. She tucks her cold hand between her knees to warm it. The sensation of skin on skin is comforting. The cloud cover outside grows thicker. The air pressure changes slightly. The heavy atmosphere presses down on the city. It dampens sound even further. The distant rumble of the wagons has stopped completely now. The deliveries are done, or the drivers have paused to rest. The city is in a state of suspension. Nothing happens. Minutes pass, nothing changes. This is the beauty of the boring night. There is no narrative arc. There is no climax. There is only existence. The heart beats. The lungs breathe. The cells divide. The world turns. She is completely alone, yet she is connected to millions of others who are also sleeping in the dark. In the Insulae apartments, in the villas on the hills, in the barracks of the Praetorian Guard, people are lying in the dark, breathing in the same rhythm. It is a collective pause, a shared truce with the demands of life. She swallows in her sleep, a small clicking sound in her throat. Her jaw relaxes again. The darkness is not scary. It is restful. It is a break for the eyes, a break for the brain. It wipes the slate clean. In the corner of the room, the unlit oil lamp sits on the table. Its shape is barely visible, just a darker shadow against the dark wall. It waits for the morning. It waits for the spark. But for now, it is cold clay. The woman's breathing deepens even more. She has entered the deepest phase of sleep, the restorative slumber that heals the body. She is heavy, immovable. If you were to whisper her name now, she would not hear you. She is far away, deep inside the citadel of rest. The room holds her. The night holds the room. Peace, stillness, the slow, heavy passage of time. The darkness in the room is absolute, but the silence is about to change. For the last hour, the clouds have been gathering thick and low over the city, sealing in the air and muting the sounds of the streets. Now the pressure shifts. The air grows heavy with moisture. A new scent drifts through the open window of the atrium and seeps under the curtain into the bedroom. It is the scent of wet stone, of dry earth drinking its first sip of water. It is the smell of coming rain. The woman does not wake. The change in the atmosphere is subtle, a shift in ions that her dreaming mind registers only as a deepening of comfort. She pulls the wool blanket up a fraction of an inch, burying her chin in the rough fabric. Then it begins. Tap. A single drop of rain hits the terracotta roof tiles above the bedroom. It is a dry, hollow sound. Tap. Then another tap and another tap, tap. It is not a storm. It is a gentle, steady winter rain. It falls straight down from the gray sky, landing on the curved clay tiles of the roof. The sound multiplies. Tap, 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 tap. It becomes a soft, rhythmic drumming, a texture of sound that wraps around the house. Inside the cubiculum, the noise is muffled by the ceiling and the thick walls, turning it into a low, soothing hum. It is white noise, nature's own lullaby. It creates a barrier between the sleeper and the rest of the world. The rain says, "Stay here. Don't move." The world is wet and cold, but you are dry and warm. The woman's breathing adjusts to the rhythm of the rain. The sound seems to smooth out the edges of the night. In the courtyard, the rain falls on the leaves of the laurel bush. Patter, patter, patter. The leaves bow under the weight of the water, then spring back, shaking off the droplets. The stone floor of the courtyard begins to glisten. The dust is washed away, replaced by a sheen of water that reflects nothing in the darkness. Inside the atrium, the rain falls through the open roof, the impluvium, and lands in the pool below. Splash, splash, splash. The surface of the water in the impluvium is now a chaotic dance of ripples. The water level rises slowly, inch by inch. The sound of water falling into water is different from the sound on the roof. It is wetter, deeper. It echoes softly against the stone walls of the main hall. The air in the house grows cooler and fresher. The humidity rises. The dry, dusty smell of the earlier evening is completely gone. Now the house smells like a riverbank, like wet clay and damp wood. The woman sleeps on. The sound of the rain triggers a deep instinct for hibernation. Her muscles relax even further if that is possible. She is a heavy, warm shape under a mound of wool. She turns her head on the pillow. The linen pillowcase feels cool against her ear. She sighs, a long, contented breath that mingles with the sound of the rain. H-H-H-N-N-N-N. The rain intensifies slightly. It finds a rhythm, steady, monotonous, unending. It washes over the roof tiles, flowing down the channels, dripping off the eaves. Drip, drip, drip. The water hits the cobblestones of the street outside with a wet slap. The city of Rome is being washed. The dust of the forum, the grit of the subura, the sand of the arenas, it is all being rinsed away. The marble statues in the squares are streaked with water. The stone lions glisten. The empty streets run with small rivulets of water flowing down towards the Tiber. But in the bedroom it is dry, bone dry. The roof holds. The tiles, baked in the Roman sun years ago, form a perfect shield. Not a drop enters the sleeping space. This contrast, The wet chaos outside and the dry sanctuary inside is the essence of comfort. She feels the weight of the blankets pressing her down. It is a good weight. It feels like security. She is anchored to the bed, safe from the weather, safe from the night. The candle wick in the lamp on the table, cold and black, absorbs a tiny bit of moisture from the air. The wood of the table darkens slightly in the humidity. The house breathes in the rain. A small draft moves the curtain. It brings a wave of cool, damp air across the room. It touches the woman's forehead. She frowns slightly in her sleep, then relaxes. Her body generates more heat to compensate. The bed becomes a toaster, a warm pocket of air against the chill. The sound of the rain is hypnotic. It has no melody, no pattern. It is just a continuous gray wash of sound. It drowns out the creaks of the house. It drowns out the distant bark of the dog. There is only the rain. Drum, drum, drum. It is a boring sound, wonderfully, perfectly boring. It demands no attention. It asks no questions. It simply is. The woman's hand slides under the pillow. She seeks the coolest spot. Her fingers curl around the fabric. She is completely at peace. The rain continues. It will rain for hours. There is no rush. The clouds are slow and heavy. The night is long. She drifts deeper. The dream she was having dissolves into the sound of the water. She is floating on a dark sea, rocked by gentle waves. Everything is soft. Everything is wet outside. Everything is warm inside. The Roman night is a blanket of water and stone. The rain has found its true rhythm now. It is no longer a collection of individual drops. It is a continuous curtain of water falling from the Roman sky. The sound is a steady, encompassing drone that wraps around the house like a thick shawl. Hum shhh, hum shhh. It is the sound of the world being muffled. Inside the cubiculum, the woman sleeps deeply, her consciousness buried under layers of wool and the hypnotic noise of the weather. The rain is a heavy blanket for the ears, blocking out the sharp edges of silence. It is a constant, predictable texture of sound that tells the brain, nothing is changing. Everything is consistent. Sleep. The air in the bedroom has become damp and cool. The humidity has risen, carrying with it the smell of the wet earth from the garden and the mineral scent of the soaked roof tiles. It is a fresh, clean smell, the smell of the city being washed. The woman breathes it in. Her chest rises and falls in a slow, oceanic rhythm. Inhale, exhale. The cool air enters her nose, traveling down into her warm lungs, a tiny exchange of temperature that happens 12 times a minute. She is curled on her right side now. Her knees are pulled up towards her chest, preserving the heat of her core. The wool blankets are heavy over her hip and shoulder. They have settled around her form, creating a warm, dark cave. Inside this cave, the temperature is perfect. It is the heat of the body reflected back by the wool. It is a cozy, private warmth that stands in stark contrast to the wet stone outside. In the atrium, beyond the curtain, the water is performing its ancient function. The rain falls through the square opening in the roof, the impluvium, and lands in the shallow pool below, the impluvium. Splash, gurgle, splash. The basin is filling up. The water is dark and agitated. It swirls against the marble sides. When the level gets too high, it flows into a small overflow drain, a lead pipe buried beneath the floor that carries the excess water out to the street or into a cistern. It is a system of invisible plumbing, working silently in the dark. The water flows away, unseen, unheard, managing the flood so the house remains dry. The sound of the water hitting the pool is wet and slap-like. It echoes slightly off the hard walls of the main room, a ghostly applause for the rain. But in the bedroom, behind the heavy curtain, this sound is distant. It is just a part of the background texture. The woman shifts her legs under the covers. The wool scratches softly against the linen sheet. Scritch, scratch. She is seeking a cooler patch of the mattress with her feet. She finds it, a corner of the straw sack that has not yet been warmed by her body. It feels cool and crisp. She sighs in her sleep, a small sound of physical satisfaction. The rain on the roof tiles above her head creates a different sound. It is a dull thrumming. Thrum, thrum, thrum. The terracotta tiles are thick. They absorb the impact of the drops, turning the sharp tap into a low thud. It is the sound of protection. It is the sound of a shelter doing exactly what it was built to do. She is safe. The roof will not leak. The walls will not dissolve. The Roman builders knew how to keep the water out. Outside the window, in the narrow courtyard, the water is pooling on the stone pavers. It runs in small rivulets between the cracks. The leaves of the small laurel tree are heavy with water. Occasionally, a branch dips under the weight, dumping its load of water onto the ground with a sudden splosh, then springs back up. The world outside is gray and wet and cold. The world inside is black and dry and warm. The woman's hand resting near her face on the pillow is relaxed. Her fingers are loose. The tension of the day, the gripping of the spindle, the holding of the cup, is gone. Her hand is just a shape in the dark. A small draft sneaks under the door again. It is colder now, carrying the bite of the rain. It brushes across the floor, touching the legs of the bed. It does not reach the sleeper. She is high up on the bed frame, insulated by the straw mattress. She dreams of water. Not a storm, but a slow, wide river. She is floating on a barge, watching the bank slide by. The river is silent. The sky in the dream is the same gray as the sky outside. It is a boring dream, a peaceful dream. Nothing happens. The barge just moves, carried by the current. The rain continues. It shows no sign of stopping. It is a winter rain set in for the long haul. It will rain until dawn and perhaps beyond. The passage of time is marked only by the accumulation of water and the deepening of sleep. There is no urgency. The night is a long tunnel, and she is drifting through it at her own pace. The oil lamp on the table is cold to the touch. The clay has absorbed the chill of the room. It sits there, a dark sentinel, waiting for the fire that will not come until morning. The woman swallows again, a reflex action. Her throat moves. Her breathing pauses for a second, then resumes. H. The darkness is soft. It presses against her eyes, a velvet blindfold. It is a relief not to see. The eyes work hard during the day, scanning, reading faces, watching work. Now they do nothing. They float in their sockets at rest. The sound of the rain is a wall. It blocks out the city. The wagons may still be moving on the main roads. The guards may be shouting at the gates, but none of that reaches this room. The rain washes it all out. It creates a bubble of isolation. She is alone in the universe of the bedroom. Just her, the wool, and the sound of the falling water. It is a simple existence. It is a good existence. The straw in the mattress settles with a faint creak. The house adjusts to the dampness. Wood swells, rope tightens. The structure is alive in its own slow way. The woman turns slightly, burying her face deeper into the pillow. She is chasing the darkness, diving towards the bottom of the sleep. The rain falls, the sleeper breathes. The night holds steady. There is nothing else. The rain continues to fall, a relentless, gentle drumming that has become the only reality of the night. It has been falling for hours now, soaking the city, turning the dust of the streets into heavy mud. But here, inside the thick walls of the house, the mud is just an idea, something far away and irrelevant. Here, everything is dry. The woman lies deep within the nest of her bed. The sensation of warmth is profound. It is not just a lack of cold, it is a positive physical presence. The heat generated by her body has been trapped by the layers of wool blankets, building up into a cozy, radiant energy that wraps around her limbs. It feels as though she is floating in a bath of warm air, suspended above the cold stone floor. Her feet, which were cool earlier in the evening, are now toasty warm. She rubs one foot against the other slowly, a subconscious movement of comfort. Rub, rub. The skin slides against skin, smooth and warm. She tucks her toes into the softness of the mattress. The air in the room, outside the sanctuary of the blankets, is distinctly cold. If she were to stick her hand out now, the chill would bite at her fingers. But she keeps her hands tucked in, held close to her chest. Only the tip of her nose and her forehead are exposed to the room. Her nose feels cool, a small point of contrast that makes the warmth of the rest of her body feel even sweeter. She breathes in the cool, damp air. It travels down her throat, refreshing and clean. She breathes out warm air. It is a slow, rhythmic exchange. Inhale cool, exhale warm. The sound of the rain has changed slightly. The wind has shifted, blowing the drops against the wooden shutters of the window in the main room. Pat, 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 splosh. It is a wetter, heavier sound. It emphasizes the solidity of the wood. The shutters are closed tight, barred from the inside. They rattle very gently in their frames, a soft clack-clack that is barely audible over the rain. The house feels like a ship at sea, battered by the elements but watertight and secure. The woman is the passenger, sleeping through the storm in a warm cabin. She shifts her weight. The straw in the mattress compresses with a soft, crunching sound. It is a dry, earthy noise, the sound of a summer field remembering itself in the winter night. She settles into a new position, her head sinking deeper into the wool-stuffed pillow. The pillow molds around her ear, muffling the sound of the rain even further. Now the world sounds like a distant hum, a vibration rather than a noise. In the corner of the room, the cedar chest stands silently. Its dark wood absorbs the darkness of the room. Inside, the folded linens are cool and still. They wait for the morning for the hands that will use them. But for now, they are just objects in the dark, existing without purpose. The darkness is total. There is no gray light from the window anymore, no moonbeam to track across the floor. The clouds have choked off all light from the sky. The room is a black box. This absence of light is restful. The eyes do not need to focus. The brain does not need to interpret shapes. There is nothing to see, so the mind stops looking. The woman dreams of walking on a stone path. The path is warm, heated by the sun. She walks slowly. There is no destination. She just walks, feeling the warmth on the soles of her feet. It is a simple dream, a reflection of the physical comfort she feels in the bed. Outside, water drips from the eaves of the roof into the street. Plip-plop, plip-plop. It forms a puddle on the cobblestones. The puddle grows, spilling over into the gutter, joining the stream of rainwater flowing down towards the river. The water moves endlessly, obeying the pull of gravity. Inside, the woman is motionless. Her breathing is a long, slow sigh. H-H-H-H-H-H-H. The silence of the house, beneath the sound of the rain, is heavy. It is the silence of deep stone. The foundations of the house go deep into the earth. They are cool and stable. They do not vibrate with the passing wagons. They hold the house still. She feels a sense of heaviness in her limbs. It is the delicious weight of deep sleep, where the muscles have completely let go of their tension. Her arms feel like they are made of lead. Her legs are heavy logs. She could not move quickly if she wanted to, but she has no desire to move. She is anchored here in the warmth, in the dark. The smell of the room is neutral, just the faint scent of wool and the damp air. It is a boring smell, a safe smell. A drop of water falls down the chimney in the kitchen, hitting the cold ash of the stove. PFFFT. A tiny sound of impact. It disturbs nothing. The ash absorbs the water and turns to paste. The night stretches on. It is a vast, empty space of time. There are no appointments to keep. There are no bells ringing. There is only the rain falling on the roof and the woman sleeping in the bed. It is a perfect equilibrium. The cold outside, the warm inside. The noise outside, the quiet inside. The chaos of the weather, the stillness of the sleeper. She swallows again, a tiny click in the silence. Her eyelids flutter once, then go still. She is deep in the velvet dark, protected by the stone and the wool, drifting through the long, slow hours of the Roman night. The rain has not ceased. If anything, it has found a deeper, more insistent rhythm. It falls with a steady determination, a vertical river connecting the gray sky to the stone streets. Humdrum, humdrum. It is a wall of sound that encloses the house, separating it from the rest of the city, from the rest of the world. Inside the cubiculum, the woman lies beneath the weight of the wool. She is utterly still. The earlier adjustments of finding a comfortable position are done. She has found the perfect hollow in the straw mattress, a shape that cradles her hip and shoulder, supporting the heavy relaxation of her muscles. She does not need to move. There is no reason to move. The darkness in the room is thick. It feels almost like a liquid, filling the space between the floor and the ceiling, pressing gently against the walls. It is a restful darkness devoid of any visual noise. There are no flickering lights, no glowing screens, no street lamps casting jagged shadows. There is only the pure, unadulterated black of the natural night. Her breathing is the only clock that matters. Inhale. The air enters cool and damp. Exhale. The air leaves warm and used. It is a slow cycle, stretching out over seconds that feel like minutes. The heavy wool curtain that separates the bedroom from the atrium hangs motionless. It is made of dense fabric, dyed a deep red that appears black in this lack of light. It acts as a thermal barrier, trapping the body heat generated by the sleeper inside the small alcove of the bedroom, keeping the colder air of the main hall at bay. Occasionally, a draft from the atrium pushes against the curtain. The fabric stirs just slightly, billowing inward for a fraction of an inch before settling back. Swish soft. It is a whisper of movement, a sign that the air in the house is alive, circulating slowly in the dark. The woman feels the warmth of the bed as a physical embrace. The layers of blankets, rough wool on top, finer wool beneath, create a seal. The heat is concentrated around her core. Her hands, tucked near her chest, are warm. Her feet are warm. The cold is something that exists only in the abstract, something that is happening to the stones outside, not to her. She dreams now of a field of wheat. The wheat is tall and golden, swaying in a gentle wind. There is no sound in the dream, just the visual rhythm of the grain moving back and forth. Sway, sway, sway. It is a peaceful image, born from the memory of summer, playing out in the depths of winter. Outside, the rain creates small rivers in the street. The water rushes over the cobblestones, carrying away the dust and debris of the day. It gurgles as it falls into the stone gutters. Gurgle, rush, splash. The sound is distant, filtered through the thick outer walls of the house, arriving in the bedroom as a low, soothing vibration. The house is a shell. It is hard and unyielding on the outside, protecting the soft, warm life on the inside. The bricks absorb the moisture of the rain, turning a darker shade of red, but they do not let it pass. The mortar holds. The structure is patient. In the kitchen, the clay pots on the shelf sit in the dark. They are cold. The metal cauldron hangs from its hook, silent and empty. The objects of daily labor are at rest. They have no function in the night. They simply wait. The woman's eyelids are heavy curtains of their own. Even if a light were to shine now, it would take her a long time to wake. She is deep in the delta wave sleep, the restorative slumber that repairs the body and clears the mind. It is a biological necessity, but it feels like a luxury. She swallows, a reflex that ripples through her throat. Her jaw remains relaxed, slightly open. The scent of the room is unchanged. It is the scent of safety, wool, stone, and sleep. A small mouse, seeking shelter from the damp, scurries along the rafters in the attic above. Its tiny claws make a scratching sound on the wood. Scritch, scratch, scritch. It pauses, listening. Then it moves on. The sound is faint, barely audible over the rain. It does not disturb the sleeper. It is just another layer of the house's life. The woman shifts her leg again. The movement is slow, languid. The wool blanket slides over her shin. Shhh. The straw mattress adapts, crunching softly. She settles back into stillness. There is no time here. The concept of hours and minutes has dissolved. There is only the now of the rain and the now of the sleep. The past is gone. The future has not arrived. There is only this long, dark, wet moment. She feels a profound sense of heaviness. It is as if gravity has increased, pulling her gently down into the earth. It is a grounding sensation. She is part of the bed, part of the room, part of the silence. The rain continues to drum on the roof. Thrum, thrum, thrum. It is a monotonous beat, a rhythm without a melody. It is the perfect soundtrack for boredom. It tells the brain that there is nothing new to process, nothing to analyze, just rain. The air in the room is cool on her forehead. It feels clean. It keeps the stuffiness of the small room at bay. It is a balance, the warm bed and the cool air. She is a solitary figure in the dark. A Roman woman, alone in her home, safe in her bed, while the empire turns slowly through the wet night. She breathes in, she breathes out. The silence waits for the next breath. The room is a cavern of stillness, carved out of the noisy world by the dual chisels of darkness and rain. The rain has not let up. Its persistence is the only active force in the universe of the house. It falls with a steady, unhurried cadence, drum, drum, drum on the terracotta tiles overhead, a sound that has become as familiar and unnoticed as the beating of a heart. Inside the cubiculum, the woman remains in the heavy embrace of sleep. She has not moved for a long time. She lies on her side, a shape defined only by the rise and fall of the wool blankets. The darkness is so complete that the boundaries of her body are lost. She is simply a warm presence in the cool void. On the small wooden table beside the bed, the oil lamp sits in its own silence. It is an object of clay, shaped by human hands, fired in a kiln and now resting in the dark. It is cold to the touch. The residue of the oil in its reservoir has settled, thick and golden, waiting. The charred wick is a tiny black stump, a memory of the light that was. The lamp does not see the sleeper. It does not hear the rain. It simply exists, a potential for light in a world of shadow. It occupies its space on the table with a quiet dignity. The grain of the wood beneath it is invisible, but it is there, swirls and knots of a tree that grew years ago, now supporting the vessel of light. The air in the room is stratified. Near the floor it is coldest, a layer of chill that creeps out from the stone walls. Near the ceiling it is slightly warmer, where the heat of the day lingers in the timbers. In the middle, where the woman sleeps, it is a mix of the cool draft and the warm radiance of the bed. The woman's breathing is a soft whisper, H-H-H-H-H. It is the sound of life persisting in the quiet. Occasionally, there is a tiny catch in her breath, a small snore that resolves itself instantly into the rhythmic flow. It is a human sound, imperfect and comforting. Outside, the water continues to flow. The gutters are full. The rain washes over the stone sill of the high window in the atrium. A drop splashes against the wooden shutter. Splack. It is a wetter, sharper sound than the dull thrum on the roof. It speaks of the liquid reality just inches away. But the wood holds. The barrier is absolute. The woman feels the texture of the pillow against her cheek. It is linen, woven from flax. It has softened with many washings. It is cool where her skin does not touch it and warm where it does. She moves her head a fraction of an inch. Her hair slides across the fabric. Swish. A sound so quiet it is felt more than heard. Deep in the structure of the house, a timber settles. Tock. A low, hollow knock. It is the house adjusting its bones. The wood swells with the dampness of the night shifting against the stone. It is not a threatening sound. It is the sound of an old friend moving in a chair. The boredom of the scene is its strength. There is no drama here, no sudden shouts, no flashing lights, just the slow, inexorable passage of the night. The hours are pouring away like the rain, uncounted and unmourned. The woman's hand is tucked under the blanket, resting against her chest. She can feel the slow beat of her own heart. Thump, thump, thump. It is a reassuring rhythm, the engine of her life idling in the dark. She dreams of a garden. It is a green, quiet place. She is sitting on a bench of stone. The sun is warm on her face. There is no sound in the dream, only the feeling of the sun. It is a contrast to the cool, dark room, a memory of warmth stored in the mind to ward off the winter night. The darkness presses against the eyes. It is a relief. The visual cortex is offline. The brain is not processing edges or colors or movement. It is resting. It is floating in a bath of nothingness. The smell of the room is faint. Damp stone, old wood, warm wool. It is the smell of a Roman night. It is the smell of stability. Far away beyond the walls, the city of Rome is a wet, dark labyrinth. The guards huddle in their cloaks. The stray dogs seek shelter under carts. The Tiber rises slowly, fed by the rain. But here in this room, the world is small and dry. The woman sighs in her sleep. A long, deep exhale. Ha-ya. She sinks deeper into the mattress. The straw rustles, a dry whisper of the fields. The lamp waits, the table waits, the walls wait. Everything is suspended in the amber of the night. The rain falls, drum, drum, drum. The sleeper breathes in, out. And the silence holds. The night has reached its coldest hour. It is that stretch of time long after midnight but still far from the dawn, where the earth has lost the memory of the sun and the stone of the city radiates only a damp chill. The rain continues to fall, though the intensity has shifted. It is no longer a heavy drumming but a steady soaking wash, a relentless downward flow of water that wraps the house in a shroud of liquid noise. SHHH. SHHH. Inside the cubiculum, the temperature has dropped another degree. The air is crisp, bordering on biting. It is the kind of cold that seeks out any exposed skin, any gap in the defenses of the bed. But the woman is well fortified. She has not moved for a long time. She is a mound of stillness under the pile of blankets, her body heat trapped and recirculated within the wool. She lies on her side, her back curved against the cold air of the room. The heavy wool blanket acts as a shield. It is thick, woven from the fleece of sheep that lived in the high Apennines, animals bred to withstand the snow. Now, that same protection serves the sleeping woman. The fibers of the wool are coarse and dense, interlocking to create a barrier that the cold cannot penetrate. Her breathing creates a small cloud of warmth near her face. In the absolute darkness, this mist is invisible, but it is there, a tiny, humid microclimate right in front of her nose. Exhale, mist. Inhale, clear. The rhythm is unbroken. It is a slow, hydraulic cycle, as steady as the flow of the aqueducts. The sound of the rain on the roof tiles is a constant texture. It is not a noise that interrupts. Rather, it is a noise that excludes silence. It fills the ears with a gray, static hum. Thrum-um, thrum-um. It tells the sleeping mind that the world outside is wet and inhospitable, reinforcing the primal satisfaction of being dry. In the atrium, the water level in the impluvium has stabilized. The overflow pipe is working, swallowing the excess water with a faint, gurgling sound that echoes softly in the stone hall. Gurgle, glug. It is the sound of the house digesting the storm. The water in the pool is black, disturbed by the falling drops from the roof opening. Each drop creates a ripple that travels to the edge and bounces back, a ceaseless pattern of interference that no one sees. The woman shifts her foot deep under the covers. She seeks a spot that is even warmer, rubbing her toes against the linen sheet. The friction creates a tiny spark of heat. The linen is smooth, worn soft by years of washing. It contrasts with the scratchy weight of the wool above. This sandwich of textures, smooth below, rough and heavy above, is the tactile definition of her night. She feels the weight of the sleep in her bones. It is a heaviness that pins her to the mattress. Her arm, resting on her side, feels like it belongs to a statue. Her fingers are curled and motionless. The muscles of her face are completely slack. The lines of worry, of concentration, of laughter, they have all been smoothed out by the gravity of rest. A draft sneaks past the heavy curtain. It is a river of cold air flowing across the floor. It touches the wooden chest at the foot of the bed. It touches the leather sandals left on the stone. It swirls around the legs of the bed frame. It does not reach the woman. She is high up, insulated by the straw mattress and the height of the bed. She is an island of warmth in a sea of cool air. The silence of the objects in the room is profound. The comb on the table does not move. The mirror reflects only the dark. The unlit lamp sits with infinite patience. These objects have no needs. They wait for the human hand to give them purpose, and right now, the human hand is asleep. The woman swallows, a reflex action that barely ripples the surface of her slumber. Her throat moves, then relaxes. Her jaw is loose. She dreams of a room with a fire. In the dream, the fire is bright and crackling, casting orange light on the walls. She holds her hands out to it. The sensation of heat in the dream is vivid, a phantom warmth constructed by her brain to match the comfort of the bed. The dream is quiet, just the image of the fire and the feeling of safety. Outside, the wind picks up slightly. It pushes the rain against the west wall of the house. The sound changes pitch, becoming a soft hiss against the brickwork. Hiss, shhh. The shutters in the main room rattle once, a dull wooden sound, clack, then hold firm. The house is a fortress. It was built to last, layer upon layer of brick and mortar, designed to keep the Roman winter at bay. The dampness in the air brings out the smell of the house. It is an earthy smell, old stone, lime mortar, the dust of the attic. It mingles with the scent of the woman's hair oil, a faint trace of rose that lingers on the pillow. It is a scent of enclosure, of domesticity. The darkness is a physical weight on the eyes. It is restful. There is no strain, no squinting. The optic nerve is dormant. The visual world has ceased to exist. There is only the tactile world of the bed and the auditory world of the rain. The woman turns slightly, rolling onto her back. The movement is slow and heavy, like a stone rolling on a riverbed. The straw mattress crunches, crrrrunch, and then settles. She sighs, hhhua. She pulls the blanket up to her chin, tucking it in tight. She creates a cocoon, sealing herself in. The rain continues. It falls on the palaces of the Palatine and the slums of the Subura. It falls on the statues of the gods and the paving stones of the Forum. It unites the city in a wet, gray embrace. But here, in the dark bedroom, the rain is just a lullaby. The passage of time is meaningless. The night is a single, long block of existence. There is no beginning and no end, just the middle. The boring, peaceful, safe middle of the night. She floats in the dark, she breathes. The rain falls, the stone holds. The rain has shifted its temper. It is no longer the heavy, driving downpour of the midnight hour, nor is it the gentle tapping of the early evening. It has settled into a steady, vertical soaking, a fine and relentless drizzle that wraps the city in a mist of cold water. Hush, hush. It is a sound like sand being poured onto silk, a soft, abrasive whisper against the stone walls of the house. Inside the deep sanctuary of the bedroom, the woman sleeps on. She has become part of the geography of the room, a warm hillock under the landscape of the wool blankets. Her breathing is the wind that moves through this small landscape, regular and slow. Inhale, pause, exhale, pause. While she sleeps, the rest of the house stands in a vigil of silence. In the atrium, the main hall where the day's work usually takes place, there stands a tall wooden structure, the loom. It is a warp-weighted loom leaning against the side wall, a skeleton of timber in the dark. It is the machine of the household, the place where thread becomes cloth. But tonight, it is motionless. The vertical threads of the warp hang down from the top beam, a curtain of thin, taut lines. They are white wool, ghostly in the gloom. At the bottom of each bundle of threads hangs a loom weight, a heavy, donut-shaped piece of fired clay or stone. These weights pull the threads tight, keeping the tension perfect. In the darkness, the weights hang perfectly still. Gravity pulls them straight down towards the center of the earth. They do not sway, they do not spin. They are heavy, cold, and silent, dead weight. The tension in the threads is constant, a silent strain that holds the potential for the next day's weaving. But for now, the tension is static. The loom casts a complex shadow against the wall, though there is no light to define it clearly. It is just a darker patch of black against the gray-black of the plaster. The wood of the frame is old, polished by the oil of hands and the lanolin of the wool. It smells faintly of the sheep, a smell that is woven into the very atoms of the house. A draft from the open roof, the impluvium, drifts down. The rain is falling straight through the opening, missing the loom, landing only in the central pool. The water in the pool is high now. It laps against the marble rim. Lap, lap softly. The sound is wet and close. The draft moves across the floor. It touches the hanging threads of the loom. They vibrate microscopically, a tremor that makes no sound. The air passes through them as if through the strings of a harp that no one is playing. Back in the cubiculum, the woman shifts her head. The movement is barely perceptible. She is sinking deeper into the final cycle of sleep before the dawn. The heavy wool blanket is pulled up to her ear. The texture of the wool is rough, a tactile reminder of the protection it offers. She is dreaming of nothing. Her mind is a blank slate, washed clean by the hours of rest. The worries of the market, the price of olive oil, the health of the goats, all of it has been erased for this short time. There is only the sensation of warmth and the sound of the rain. The cold of the night has permeated the outer layer of the house. The brickwork is cold. The roof tiles are cold. The courtyard is freezing. But the core of the house, the bedroom, retains its pocket of heat. It is a battle between the thermodynamics of the winter night and the biology of the sleeping woman. The wool is the armor that wins the war. She feels a heaviness in her legs, a pleasant lethargy that feels like her bones have turned to heavy stone. If she had to run now, she could not. But there is nowhere to run. There is only the bed. On the floor near the bed, a small spider has descended from the ceiling on a single thread of silk. It hangs in the air, suspended halfway between the rafters and the floor. It waits. It senses the vibration of the snoring sleeper. It senses the cool draft. It climbs back up its thread, hand over hand, disappearing into the shadows of the roof beams. Up, up, up. Silent work in the dark. The woman swallows. Her throat is dry. She smacks her lips slightly, a tiny wet sound, and then settles again. Her face is relaxed, the skin smoothed of all tension. The silence in the room is not empty. It is full. It is full of the presence of the night. It presses against the ears. In the kitchen, the culina, the smell of cold ash is dominant. The charcoal in the stove is dead. The metal grill is cold iron. A clay pot sits on the counter, covered with a wooden lid. Inside, there might be leftover stew or soaking beans. The food waits in the cool dark, preserving itself. The kitchen is a place of suspended animation. The rain outside changes tone again. It becomes lighter, a fine mist. The drumming on the roof fades to a soft whispering. Hiss. SHHH. The gutters are still running, a continuous gurgle of water escaping to the street, but the urgency of the storm has passed. The night is settling into a damp, dripping quiet. The woman's hand, tucked under her cheek, is warm. Her pulse beats against her own skin. Thump, thump. It is slow, steady, reliable. She turns onto her other side. The movement is a slow upheaval of blankets. The straw mattress protests with a loud crrr crunch, shifting its contents to accommodate her hip. The sound is startlingly loud in the quiet room, but it does not wake her. She is too deep. She settles. The wool settles. The silence rushes back in to fill the void. Now she faces the wall. The plaster is inches from her face. She breathes against it. The air bounces back, warm and humid. The concept of boredom is a modern invention. To this Roman woman, this stillness is not boring. It is vital. It is the peace that allows survival. It is the absence of labor. It is the golden time when nothing is asked of her. The darkness is a soft, heavy curtain. It wraps around her mind. It is a place of safety. The oil lamp on the table is now the coldest object in the room. The ceramic has lost all memory of the flame. It sits in the dark, a vessel of potential light, waiting for the flint and steel of the morning. Outside, the mud in the street is deep. The cart tracks are filled with water. The city is a landscape of wet stone and mud, but inside it is dry. The woman sleeps, the loom waits, the rain falls softly. Time moves forward, second by second, unseen and unmeasured. The rain has thinned to a fine, hanging mist. The heavy drumming on the roof has ceased, replaced by a silence that is wet and dense. The air outside is saturated, heavy with water, clinging to the stones of the street and the leaves of the trees. Inside the house, the atmosphere is still and cool, a reservoir of quiet air trapped between ancient walls. The woman lies motionless in the cubiculum. She has not stirred for an hour. She is a landscape of wool and linen, a dormant geography in the dim room. Her breathing is the only movement, a slow tide that rises and falls without effort. Inhale, exhale. It is the rhythm of deep preservation. The house is locked. The security of the Roman home is a physical weight, a presence in the night. At the front entrance, the fauces, the great door stands guard. It is made of solid oak, dark and seasoned, planks 3 inches thick held together by iron bands. Across the inside of the door rests the locking bar. It is a heavy beam of timber, dropped into deep brackets set into the stone of the wall. It holds the door immovable against the frame. The wood of the bar is rougher than the furniture in the bedroom. It is utilitarian, scarred by years of being lifted and dropped. Thud. It rests there now, a horizontal line of defense in the dark. It is cold to the touch. It smells of iron and old wood. There is a small gap at the bottom of the door where the wood meets the stone threshold. A tiny draft of air, carrying the supreme chill of the wet street, whistles through. Fee. It is a thin, high sound, barely audible. It curls around the bottom of the door and dissipates on the floor of the entryway. It does not reach the sleeper. It is just a reminder of the temperature difference between the inner world and the outer world. Back in the bedroom, the woman feels the warmth of the mattress beneath her. The straw has compressed into a perfect mold of her body. It supports her weight evenly. Her hip, her shoulder, her heels, they are all cradled by the dry stalks of the field. The mattress is a barrier against the cold stone floor, a raft floating on a sea of chill. She is dreaming of nothing visual now. Her mind is resting in a state of pure sensation. She feels heavy. Her arms feel as though they have sunk into the bed. Her legs are anchored. It is a feeling of being grounded, of being held down by the gentle hand of gravity. The darkness in the room is soft. It is not the sharp black of a painted wall, but a deep, grainy gray black, the color of closed eyes. It is easy on the mind. It demands no interpretation. On the table, the small bronze mirror captures a single stray photon of light, perhaps from a break in the clouds outside, reflecting off the wet pavement, bouncing through the window and finding the metal. It is a tiny, dull gleam in the dark, a pinprick of existence. It fades as quickly as it appeared. The mirror goes dark again. The silence is thick. It fills the corners of the room. It piles up like invisible snow. In the atrium, the water in the impluvium is perfectly flat. The rain has stopped falling through the roof opening. The pool is full to the brim. The water is black, opaque, hiding the mosaic tiles at the bottom. It smells of the sky, a fresh, ozone scent that mingles with the smell of the wet limestone. A small insect, a moth that had sought shelter under the eaves, flutters down into the house. It moves silently, erratic and light. It lands on the cold plaster of the wall. It sits there, vibrating its wings slightly, then goes still. It becomes a part of the wall, a small irregularity in the surface. The woman swallows in her sleep. Gulp, a soft sound that is swallowed instantly by the room. Her jaw relaxes again. Her lips part slightly, releasing a long, slow breath. Ha. The wool blanket is heavy on her shoulder. The texture is rough, but through the linen undertunic it feels merely sturdy. It is the texture of the countryside, of the flocks on the hills, brought into the city to keep the winter out. She shifts her hand. Her fingers graze the cold wall next to the bed. The stone sucks the heat from her skin instantly. She recoils, pulling her hand back into the warmth of the covers. The reaction is instinctual, done without waking. She tucks her hand under her chin, restoring the circuit of heat. The night is long. It is a vast stretch of time where nothing happens, and that is its luxury. There are no expectations. There is no labor. The loom stands empty. The fire is out. The door is barred. The woman is simply a vessel for sleep. She drifts deeper. The biological clock ticks slowly. The heart beats thump, thump, pushing the blood through the veins, keeping the extremities warm. The body works in silence so the mind can rest. Outside, the mist begins to settle on the cobblestones. The city is slick and shining in the dark. The 7 hills of Rome are shrouded in gray fog, but inside the house, it is dry. The air in the bedroom is still. Dust motes hang suspended, motionless. The woman sighs, the house creaks, the night continues. The rain has finished its work. The heavy, soaking drizzle that shrouded the city for the last hour has finally tapered off, leaving behind a silence that feels sudden and vast. The rhythmic drumming on the roof tiles has vanished. The washing sound against the walls has ceased. In their place, there is only the aftermath of the water. Outside the window, from the edge of the terracotta roof, the runoff begins its slow, final descent. Drip. A single drop of water falls from the clay tile to the stone courtyard below. Plip. It hits a small puddle. The sound is sharp and isolated in the quiet air. Drip, wait, drip, wait, drip. It is a slow, irregular metronome. It does not keep perfect time. Gravity gathers the water, the surface tension holds it, and then it falls. The sleeper in the cubiculum does not hear it. It is too soft, too distant, but the house hears it. The wet stones of the courtyard receive each drop with a tiny, liquid ripple. Inside the bedroom, the air is heavier now. The humidity has peaked. The room feels full, as if the air itself has substance. It is cool and damp, a stark contrast to the dry, concentrated heat beneath the wool blankets. The woman lies on her back. She has moved during the transition from rain to silence, rolling over to find a fresh, cool patch of linen on the pillow. Her head is turned slightly to the left. Her hair, loose and dark, spills over the edge of the bed frame, hanging down towards the floor like a silent waterfall. Her face is completely relaxed. In the deep abandonment of sleep, the muscles of the jaw have unhinged slightly, the lips parted just enough to allow the air to pass without resistance. Her eyelids are smooth, purple-shadowed in the darkness. There is no fluttering now. The dreams have paused. She is in the void. The weight of the blankets presses down on her chest. It is a comforting pressure, mimicking a hug. It slows her breathing, regulating it to a long, deep cadence. Inhale, the chest rises, lifting the heavy wool. Exhale, the chest falls, the wool settling back down. The texture of the darkness has changed. Without the sound of the rain to give it dimension, the room feels infinite. The walls seem to have dissolved. There is only the sensation of floating in a dark, warm space. Above her head, invisible in the gloom, are the ceiling rafters. They are made of old oak, cut from the forests of the Apennines decades ago. They are thick, rough-hewn beams that span the width of the room. They hold up the roof. They bear the weight of the tiles and the water. They do not complain. They are silent, strong, and still. In the cracks of the wood, dust has settled over the years. It lies undisturbed. A spider web in the corner near the ceiling is motionless. The spider is asleep, legs tucked in. The web is a geometric ghost in the dark. The woman's hands are resting on her stomach, fingers interlaced loosely. The skin of her hands is warm. The blood circulates slowly, reaching the fingertips, then returning to the heart. Pumpy flow, pumpy flow. It is a closed loop, a perfect system of hydraulics working in the dark. She feels a tiny itch on her nose. In her sleep, she wrinkles her nose. Twitch. The sensation passes. She does not wake. She sinks back into the heaviness. The floor of the bedroom is cold stone. If she were to step out of bed now, the shock would be instant. The cold has seeped into the mosaic tiles, turning them into blocks of ice. But she is not stepping out. She is floating above them on her raft of straw and linen. The smell of the room is dominated by the dampness outside. It is the smell of wet limestone and soaked earth, filtering in through the tiny gaps in the window shutters. It mixes with the smell of the wool, a faint, animal scent that becomes stronger as the blanket warms up. It is a primitive, comforting smell. In the atrium, the water in the pool is perfectly still again. The last ripples from the rain have died out. The surface is a black mirror, reflecting nothing because there is no light. The overflow drain gurgles once, glug, swallowing a final mouthful of water, then goes silent. The house is settling for the long haul of the late night. The wood of the furniture has cooled. The metal of the door hinges is cold. The physical world has slowed down to match the pace of the sleeper. There is a sense of immense duration. The night feels like it has lasted for days. The sun is a distant memory, a myth from another time. Here, there is only the shadow. The woman sighs. It is a sound of pure physical relief. Her body is heavy, limp, surrendered to gravity. She is not holding herself up. The bed is doing all the work. The silence is thick enough to touch. It wraps around the furniture. It fills the space under the bed. It stuffs the keyhole of the door. Outside, the mist is thickening. It rolls through the streets of Rome, dampening sound, hiding the buildings. A stray cat walks along a high wall, its paws making no sound on the wet stone. It stops, licks its fur, and moves on. Inside, the woman's breathing hitches for a second, then resumes its rhythm. H-H-H-H-H, H-H-H-H-H. The oil lamp on the table stands sentinel. It is dark, it is cold, it is waiting. The darkness is not empty, it is full of rest, it is full of peace. Everything is slow, everything is heavy, everything is still. The silence that follows the rain is different from the silence that preceded it. Before, the air was dry and tense, holding its breath. Now the air is released, heavy and wet, draped over the house like a damp cloth. The dripping from the roof eaves has slowed to a crawl. Drip, long pause, drip. It is a hesitant sound, marking the minutes with lazy irregularity. Inside the cubiculum, the woman remains submerged in the deep, untroubled waters of sleep. She has rolled slightly onto her stomach, one arm tucked under the pillow, the other resting loose on the mattress. Her face is turned to the side, pressing into the linen. Her breath is warm against the fabric, creating a small pocket of humidity that she breathes back in. The room is colder now than it has been all night. The dampness from the rain has leached into the stone walls, pulling the temperature down. The air feels raw, but under the mound of wool blankets, the heat is tropical. The woman is an engine of warmth, generating a steady, radiant energy that defies the Roman winter. Beyond the bedroom, beyond the atrium, lies the peristyle, the open garden courtyard at the back of the house. Here, the night is starkly beautiful in its emptiness. The garden is surrounded by a colonnade, a covered walkway supported by pillars. The pillars are painted white at the top and red at the bottom, but in this darkness they are just gray vertical lines, standing like silent sentinels. The garden itself is wet. The small laurel bushes are dripping. Pat, pat. The leaves are slick and shiny, though there is no light to reflect off them. The earth in the flower beds is turned to mud. It smells rich and pungent. The smell of wet soil, decomposing leaves, and the sharp, green scent of rosemary. In the center of the garden stands a small marble fountain. It is not running tonight. The water in its basin is still and black. A small bronze statue of a faun stands in the middle, frozen in a silent dance. The rain has washed the statue clean. Cold water clings to the bronze limbs. The metal is freezing to the touch. There is no one here. The garden exists only for itself right now. A snail moves slowly across the wet stone of the walkway. It leaves a glistening trail of slime that will vanish by morning. Its movement is the only action in the courtyard. It is agonizingly slow, a journey of inches that takes hours. Back in the bedroom, the woman sighs. It is a long, shuddering breath, a readjustment of the lungs. She moves her legs, stretching them out into the cooler corners of the bed, then retracting them back into the warmth. The straw mattress makes a soft, crumbling sound. Rustle, S-H-H-H-H. The heavy wool curtain separating the room from the rest of the house hangs perfectly straight. It absorbs the sound of the house. It is a muffler, a damper. The darkness is absolute. It presses against the eyelids. It is a relief. The woman's eyes are resting, floating in their sockets. The muscles of the face are totally slack. She dreams of a heavy cloak. In the dream, she is wrapping the cloak around herself. It is warm and heavy. It protects her from a wind that she cannot feel. The dream is simple, a mirror of her physical reality. The silence is thick. It feels solid, like the walls themselves. In the tablinum, the office space between the atrium and the garden, the master's wax tablets sit on a wooden table. The stylus lies beside them. The wax is cold and hard. The words scratched into the surface, accounts, letters, lists, are invisible in the dark. They are frozen thoughts, waiting for the light to give them meaning again. But now they are just texture on a board. A draft moves through the colonnade of the garden. It shakes a single drop of water loose from a rose bush. Plip! It hits the mud. The sound is dull and swallowed instantly. The woman's heart beats. Thump, thump. It is a slow, steady drum in the quiet room. It pumps the warm blood to her toes, to her fingers, keeping the cold at bay. She is completely alone. There is no one else in the room. There is no sound of other people. The servants are asleep in their quarters. The master is asleep. The children are asleep. The whole house is a collection of sleeping bodies, separated by walls of stone. The feeling of boredom is a physical sensation. It is a heaviness in the limbs, a slowness in the mind. It is the absence of urgency. There is nothing that needs to be done. The spinning is finished. The food is cooked. The door is locked. The night stretches out. It is a vast, dark ocean. The woman is floating on it, drifting towards the dawn, but the shore is still miles away. She swallows, her throat clicks softly, Kalik. The air in the room is still. The dust has settled. The energy of the day has dissipated completely. She burrows deeper into the pillow. The wool scratches her cheek, but she does not mind. It feels real. It feels safe. The garden waits. The house waits. The sleeper breathes. In, out, in, out. The rhythm is unbreakable. The mist that has settled over Rome is thick and clinging. It does not move. It hangs in the streets and in the courtyards, a ghost of the rain that has passed. It muffles the city, wrapping the 7 hills in a damp, gray cotton. The silence is no longer the silence of emptiness. It is the silence of insulation. Inside the house, the quiet is heavy. It has weight and mass. It presses against the walls, filling every cubic inch of space that is not occupied by furniture or flesh. The woman in the cubiculum sleeps on. She has reached the nadir of the night, the deepest, darkest point of the cycle. Her body is completely limp, surrendered entirely to the support of the straw mattress. She lies on her side, her face half buried in the linen pillow, her hair a dark sprawl across the white fabric. Her breathing is a slow, rhythmic tide, in, out, that does not vary. While she sleeps, the focus of the night shifts to the other silent inhabitants of the house, the objects in the storeroom. Down the corridor, past the atrium and the kitchen, lies the cella penaria, the household larder. It is a small room, windowless and cool, designed to preserve the food that sustains the family. Here, the darkness is even more profound than in the bedroom. There is no stray light from a window, no crack under a door. It is a sealed box of black air. In this darkness, the amphorae stand in rows. They are tall ceramic vessels, curved and elegant, with 2 handles at the neck. They lean against the walls or sit in wooden racks, their pointed bases resting in sand. They are the silent guardians of the harvest. One amphora holds olive oil from Baetica. The oil is thick and golden, sleeping inside the clay shell. It presses against the sides of the jar, heavy and viscous. It has traveled hundreds of miles to sit in this dark room. It smells faintly of green olives and sunshine, a scent locked away in the dark. Next to it stands an amphora of wine. It is sealed with a cork and a layer of pine resin or pitch. The wine is dark red, almost black in the liquid gloom. It is aging slowly, the tannins softening, the flavor deepening in the silence. It breathes through the microscopic pores of the clay, a slow chemical respiration that takes years. There are jars of garum, the fish sauce that seasons every Roman meal. The smell in this corner of the room is pungent and salty, the smell of the sea and fermentation. It is a strong, savory scent that hangs in the still air. On a high shelf, dried herbs hang in bunches. Oregano, mint, thyme, they are brittle and dry. If you were to touch them, they would crumble into dust. But no one touches them. They hang upside down, suspended in time, releasing their faint, dusty aroma into the cool room. The air here is colder than anywhere else in the house. It is a refrigerator built of stone. The walls are thick. They do not let the heat of the day enter. The floor is packed earth, hard and dry. A small sack of lentils sits on the floor. It is a slump of burlap. Inside, thousands of tiny, lens-shaped pulses lie against each other. They are hard as pebbles. They wait for the water, for the fire, for the pot. But tonight, they are just stones in a bag. The silence in the cellopan area is aggressive. It is a silence that has not been broken for hours. Dust motes float in the air, invisible and undisturbed. They drift down, settling on the shoulders of the wine jars, adding a microscopic layer of gray to the terracotta. Back in the bedroom, the woman shifts her position. The movement is slow, a lethargic roll of the hips. The wool blankets slide over her, making a soft swish sound that is loud in the quiet room. She sighs. H-H-H-Chua. It is a sound of pure comfort. She tucks her cold nose into the warmth of the pillow. The temperature in the bedroom has dropped another fraction of a degree. The stone walls are winning the battle against the residual heat, but the bed remains a fortress. The straw mattress, warmed by her body for hours, is now a radiant heater. She dreams of a wall, a simple white plaster wall. She is running her hand along it. The texture is rough and cool. It is a boring dream, a tactile dream. There is no plot, only the sensation of stone under fingertips. Outside, the mist dampens the sound of a distant cart. The cart is miles away, perhaps near the city gates, bringing in vegetables for the morning market. The sound is just a low vibration in the ground, a tremor that does not reach the sleeper's ears. Rumble, faintly, then gone. The house creaks. A wooden beam in the ceiling of the storeroom contracts. Crack, a sharp, dry sound. It echoes briefly among the amphorae, then dies. The jars do not react. They absorb the sound into their hollow bellies. The woman's hand is relaxed on the mattress. Her fingers are curled. The skin is smooth. The calluses from the spindle are invisible in the dark. The smell of the house is a complex layering of scents. The damp rain from the courtyard, the wool from the bedroom, the herbs from the storeroom, the cold ash from the kitchen. It is the olfactory signature of home. It is safe. It is familiar. A draft moves under the door of the storeroom. It stirs the dust on the floor. A single lentil, escaped from the sack days ago, rolls a millimeter. Click. It stops. The night stretches on. It feels infinite. The dawn is still hours away. The sun is busy shining on the other side of the world, leaving Rome to the shadows. The woman swallows, her throat moves, her chest rises and falls, in, out. She is deep in the peace of the empire. Not the empire of wars and laws, but the empire of the night, the empire of sleep. The oil in the lamp on the bedside table has congealed slightly in the cold. It waits. The wine in the jar waits. The lentils wait. The sleeper waits. There is no hurry. There is only the slow, heavy passage of time in the dark. The night has entered its static phase. The movement of the rain has passed. The rumble of the wagons has ceased, and the house sits suspended in a bubble of gray mist and silence. It is a silence that feels ancient, as if the air itself has turned to stone. In the cubiculum, the woman sleeps on. She is no longer just resting, she is hibernating. Her body has slowed its functions to the bare minimum. Her heart rate is slow and powerful, pushing the blood through relaxed veins. Her temperature has dropped slightly, perfectly regulated by the insulating layers of the wool blankets. She is a closed system, a warm biological machine idling in the dark. While she sleeps, the house remembers its past. In the alley, the open wings that flank the atrium, stand the cupboards of the ancestors. These are tall, wooden cabinets with doors that are currently closed. Inside them rest the imagines, the wax masks of the family's forebears. In the darkness, these masks are invisible, but they are there. They are faces molded from beeswax, tinted with earth pigments to resemble flesh. They sit on their shelves, staring into the back of the wooden doors. There is a mask of a grandfather who died 30 years ago. There is a mask of a grey-tuncle who served in a legion in Gaul. There are faces of old women and stern men. They are made of wax. They smell of old beeswax and dust. They are cold. The silence in the alley is different from the silence in the bedroom. It is a respectful silence. The air here is still. Not a single draft disturbs the cupboards. The ancestors wait in the dark. They do not judge. They do not haunt. They simply persist, preserved in wax, a physical record of the lineage that led to the woman sleeping in the next room. A small spider has spun a web between the leg of the cupboard and the wall. The spider sits in the center of the web. It is motionless. It waits for a fly that will not come until spring. The web is a masterpiece of engineering, invisible in the gloom, delicate and strong. The floor of the atrium is cold. The black and white mosaic tiles are like ice. If one were to walk here, the cold would seep through the soles of the feet in seconds. But no one walks here. The floor is an empty expanse of geometry, triangles and squares locked in a silent pattern. Back in the bedroom, the woman stirs. It is a microscopic movement. Her hand, which was tucked under her chin, slides down a few inches to rest on the pillow. The friction of skin against linen makes a soft shhh sound. The sound is swallowed immediately by the heavy curtains. She dreams of walking through a long hallway. The hallway is lined with doors, but she does not open them. She just walks. The floor in the dream is smooth. The light is dim. It is a boring dream, a loop of walking that mirrors the passage of time in the night. The air in the bedroom is thick with the humidity of the earlier rain. It makes the wool blankets feel slightly heavier. It makes the smell of the room earthier. The woman breathes in the damp air. Inhale, it cools her throat. Exhale, she warms the room. The oil lamp on the table is a dark shape. It has lost all connection to the concept of fire. It is just a lump of clay. The handle is cold. The nozzle is cold. It sits on the wood, casting no shadow because there is no light. Outside, the mist is so thick that the world beyond the window has ceased to exist. There is no street, no city, no empire. There is only the white-gray wall of the fog. It presses against the house. It dampens the sound of the stray dogs. It dampens the sound of the river. In the corner of the atrium, near the ancestor masks, stands a bronze candelabra. It is tall, resting on 3 animal-footed legs. It holds no candles tonight. The metal is dull and tarnished in the dark. It stands like a skeletal tree, its branches empty. The house settles again. Creak. A floorboard in the upper story shifts. The sound travels down the walls, a lonely note in the symphony of silence. The woman does not hear it. She is too deep. She swallows, a reflex that tightens the muscles of her throat for a second, then releases them. Gulp. Her face remains expressionless. She is a statue of flesh. The darkness is a physical substance. It fills the cupboards of the ancestors. It fills the hollow of the impluvium. It fills the space between the woman's arm and her side. It is a comforting, unifying force. It hides the dust. It hides the cracks in the plaster. It makes everything perfect and whole. The woman's hair is spread out on the pillow like a dark fan. Individual strands catch the non-existent light. It is a chaotic pattern, contrasting with the order of the mosaic floor. Time is moving but slowly. It drags its feet. The seconds pile up into minutes, the minutes into hours. There is no urgency to get to the dawn. The night is content to be the night. A small beetle crawls out from under the wooden cupboard in the ala. It moves across the cold stone. Its legs move in a rhythmic wave. Scuttle, scuttle. It stops to investigate a speck of dust. It moves on. It is the only witness to the masks. The woman sighs. Ha-ha-ha. A long, deep release of air. She is recharging. Every cell in her body is repairing itself. The boredom of the night is the fuel for the day. She turns onto her back. The straw mattress crunches loudly, crunch rustle shifting to accommodate her weight. The sound echoes in the small room but does not wake her. She flings one arm out, her hand dangling off the side of the bed. Her fingers brush the cold air near the floor. She stays like that, vulnerable, relaxed, safe. The ancestors in the wax mask stare into the dark. The beetle moves across the floor. The woman breathes. The mist holds the house in a wet, gray embrace. Peace, stillness, the slow, heavy beat of the night. The night hangs suspended in the thick gray mist. Time seems to have stopped completely. There is no forward motion, no progress towards the dawn, only a deep, infinite present. The house is a sealed vessel, floating in the ocean of the Roman fog. Inside the cubiculum, the woman has returned to a fetal position. The cold air near the floor, which her hand brushed against moments ago, has triggered a subconscious retreat. She has pulled her arm back under the wool covers, tucking her hand between her knees. She is a tight ball of warmth again, self-contained and secure. Her breathing is a soft vibration in the room. H-H-H-H-H, ooh. It is the sound of deep biological maintenance. The air she exhales is humid and warm, invisible in the dark but palpable if one were close enough. While she sleeps, the entrance of the house keeps its own watch. Past the heavy curtain of the bedroom, past the silent atrium with its pool of black water, leads the short corridor known as the fauces, the throat of the house. This is the narrow passage that connects the private world of the family to the public world of the street. Here on the floor lies a mosaic. It is made of black and white tesserae, small square stones set into mortar. The design depicts a large chained dog with the words cave C-A-N-E-M, beware of the dog inlaid beneath it. But tonight, the mosaic dog is covered by a real one. Lying on the cool tiles curled against the heavy wooden door is the household guardian. He is a large dog, a Molossian mix, with heavy paws and a thick coat of tawny fur. He is fast asleep. His job is to guard the door, to bark at intruders, to protect the peace of the home. But there are no intruders. There is only the mist, and so the guardian sleeps. He breathes with a heavy, wet sound. Snore, whistle, snore. His flank rises and falls rhythmically. The heat of his body warms the mosaic stones beneath him. He smells of wet fur and dust. In his sleep, the dog twitches. His back leg kicks out, thump, hitting the wood of the door. He is dreaming of a chase. Perhaps he is chasing a hare across the fields of the Campagna. Perhaps he is barking at a stranger. In the dream, he is fierce and loud. In the hallway, he is just a warm, snoring lump in the dark. The door he leans against is the primary barrier of the house. It is a massive construction of oak planks darkened by oil and age. The bronze studs that decorate the outside are cold and wet from the mist. The inside is dry. The large iron lock mechanism is silent. The key, a heavy piece of intricate ironwork, hangs on a hook in the master's office, far away. Under the door, a microscopic draft enters. It carries the smell of the street, wet stone, donkey dung, the sharp scent of a nearby laurel tree. The dog sniffs in his sleep, his nose twitching to analyze the scent. Sniff, sniff. He decides it is familiar. He does not wake. Beyond the door lies the street. It is a narrow Roman street, paved with large, irregular blocks of basalt. The stones are slick with the mist. They shine dully in the gloom, reflecting nothing. In the middle of the street, there are raised stepping stones, large, flat-topped rocks placed at intervals to allow pedestrians to cross without stepping in the muck of the road. Tonight, the stepping stones look like small islands in a river of gray fog. The mist swirls around them. It moves slowly, drifting in currents that mimic water. Swirl, drift. It hugs the ground. It wraps around the corner of the house. It dampens all sound. 50 feet down the street stands a public fountain. It is a stone basin fed by a lead pipe connected to the aqueduct. The water flows from the mouth of a carved stone lion. Even at this hour, the water does not stop. Splash, gurgle, splash. It is a constant rushing sound. The water falls into the basin, overflows, and runs down into the street gutter. It is the sound of the city's circulatory system. It is clean, cold mountain water, arriving in the sleeping city to wash away the night. The sound of the fountain is the only noise on the street. It is steady and monotonous. It blends with the mist. Back inside the house, the woman shifts again. The straw mattress makes a soft, crunching sound as she moves her head. She buries her face deeper into the pillow. The linen is warm now, heated by her skin. She swallows, her throat clicks, Kalik. The silence in the house is layered over the distant sound of the fountain. It creates a sense of depth. The woman is protected by walls, by doors, by the dog, by the distance. She feels a sense of heaviness in her chest. It is not uncomfortable, it is the weight of relaxation. Her ribs move slowly. Her heart beats slowly. Thump, thump. The dog at the door sighs. It is a long, doggy sigh ending in a small whine. HNNNN. He stretches his front paws out, scratching his claws against the stone floor. Scritch. Then he settles back into the curl. The darkness in the fauces is absolute. There is no window here. It is a tunnel of black. The air is cool. It smells of the dog and the damp stone. The house feels anchored. It is a heavy thing built of brick and concrete. It sits on the earth with authority. It is not going anywhere. The woman dreams of water now. She hears the distant fountain in her sleep, and her mind weaves it into a dream of a river. She is sitting by the riverbank. The water is clear. It flows over white stones. It is a peaceful, boring dream. The mist outside thickens. It fills the street completely. If a person were to walk by now, they would be a phantom, visible only for a second before disappearing into the white. But no one walks by. The street is empty. The stepping stones wait. The basalt blocks wait. The fountain runs. Inside, the dog snores. Inside, the woman sleeps. The connection between them is the silence. They are both creatures of the house, resting in the safety of the walls. The night is long. The dawn is just a rumor. There is only the mist and the stone. Everything is slow. Everything is heavy. Everything is still. The mist outside has thickened, sealing the house in a damp, white cocoon. The city of Rome has disappeared, reduced to a collection of vague shapes and wet stones hidden in the fog. Inside, the darkness is heavy and still, a physical weight that fills every room, every corner, every crack in the plaster. In the cubiculum, the woman sleeps on. She has reached the most profound depth of her rest. Her body is entirely motionless, a warm sculpture beneath the mound of wool blankets. Her breathing is so quiet now that it is barely a whisper. Inhale, exhale. It is a thread of life spun out into the silence. While she sleeps, the silence occupies the tablinum. This is the room that sits between the atrium and the garden, the space of business and records. It is open to the air, separated only by curtains or screens, and tonight it is filled with the cold, damp breath of the mist. On a heavy wooden table, the tools of the day's administration lie scattered. They are invisible in the dark, but they are there, fixed in their positions. A set of wax tablets, a diptych, lies open. The wood of the frame is smooth beech. The center is filled with black beeswax, smoothed flat. On the surface of the wax, letters have been scratched with a sharp stylus. They are lists. Boring, necessary lists. 3 modi of wheat, new sandals for the boy, repair the garden wall. The words are frozen in the wax. In the cold of the night, the wax has hardened. It is like stone. The letters are jagged valleys in a black plain. They hold the mundane duties of the household in suspension, waiting for the sun to make them relevant again. But right now, in the dark, they mean nothing. They are just texture. Beside the tablets lies the stylus. It is made of bronze, thin and tapered, with a flat end for erasing. It rests on the wood of the table. It is freezing cold. If the woman were to touch it now, it would burn her skin with its chill. It does not move. It catches no light. A rolled papyrus scroll sits in a small leather bucket on the floor. The papyrus is dry and brittle. It smells of the reed beds of the Nile, a faint, dusty scent of dried grass. It is rolled tight. The words inside, perhaps accounts, perhaps a letter from a cousin in Neapolis, are rolled up with it, hiding in the spiral darkness. The silence in the tablinum is the silence of paused labor. It is a stillness that hangs over the desk, over the empty chair. A draft from the garden moves through the room. It touches the edge of the papyrus scroll. Rustle, a sound so faint it is almost imaginary. The paper shifts a fraction of an inch against the leather. Then silence returns. Back in the bedroom, the woman shifts her head. The movement causes the straw in the pillow to compress. Crinkle. Hush. The sound is muffled by the heavy wool of the pillowcase. She does not wake. She is far away, drifting on a dark sea of unconsciousness. She feels the warmth of her own body trapped by the blankets. It is a humid, tropical heat that contrasts sharply with the raw dampness of the room. She is a furnace in the winter night. Her hand, tucked under the covers, is relaxed. Her palm is open. The lines on her hand, the lifeline, the heart line, are smoothed out. The smell of the room is changing slightly. As the night wears on, the dampness brings out the smell of the lime mortar in the walls. It is a chalky, mineral scent. It mixes with the smell of the beeswax from the tablets in the next room. The house feels permanent. It feels as though it has always been here and will always be here. The stone does not care about the time. The wood does not care about the mist. Outside, the fountain in the street continues to run. Splash. Gurgle. The sound is dampened by the fog, arriving at the house as a low, continuous drone. It blends with the ringing silence in the ears. The woman swallows in her sleep. Glug, her throat moves. Her chest rises and falls, in, out. There is no anxiety here. There is no rush. The lists on the wax tablets will wait. The wheat will wait. The wall will wait. The night demands nothing but patience. A small moth, lost in the dark, lands on the edge of the wooden table in the tablinum. It folds its wings. It sits there near the cold stylus. It is a tiny spot of life in the landscape of inanimate objects. It waits for the dawn. The darkness presses against the eyes. It is soft and velvety. It is a relief to see nothing. The woman sighs, ha, a long, deep breath that empties her lungs. She sinks deeper into the mattress. The straw holds her up. The wool holds her down. She is balanced, she is safe. The night is a long, slow river, and she is floating on it, carried gently towards the morning. Everything is slow, everything is cold, everything is still. The mist continues to hold the city in a soft, white suspension. It presses against the windows, a silent ocean of vapor that muffles the cobblestones and hides the stars. The world outside has been erased, leaving only the interior of the house as the sole reality. Inside, the silence has acquired a new quality. It is the silence of the antelusum, the hour before the light. It is a brittle, cold silence where the air feels thin and sharp. In the cubiculum, the woman remains in the deepest trench of sleep. She has stopped moving entirely. She lies on her right side, her body curled into a tight C-shape under the mound of blankets. Her hands are tucked securely between her knees, preserving every calorie of heat. Her breathing is a shallow, rhythmic ghost of a sound. H-H-H-H-H. S-S-S-S-S. It barely disturbs the air. While she sleeps, the spiritual guardians of the house keep their own silent vigil. In the corner of the atrium, set into the plaster of the wall, is the lararium. It is the household shrine, a small temple in miniature. It is an alcove shaped like a small house, with a pediment and columns painted in fading reds and yellows. In the absolute darkness of the night, the colors are invisible, but the presence of the shrine is heavy. Inside the niche stand the small figurines of the Lares and Penates, the gods of the household and the pantry. They are made of bronze, tarnished by age and the smoke of past offerings. They stand about 6 inches tall. One figure holds a drinking horn, another holds a dish. They are frozen in a pose of eternal offering. They are cold to the touch. The bronze has absorbed the chill of the night air. They stand in the dark, staring out into the empty hall with blind metal eyes. They do not blink. They do not move. They simply are. Below the figures, on a small limestone ledge, sits a tiny ceramic dish. In the dish is a pinch of salt and a few grains of spelt wheat, an offering made by the woman hours ago, before the sun went down. The offering sits there, untouched. The salt has absorbed moisture from the damp air and clumped together. The grain is hard and cold. There is a painting on the wall below the niche. It depicts 2 snakes approaching a central altar. In the Roman mind, these are the guardian spirits of the place. In the dark, the painted snakes are just curves of shadow on the plaster. They are silent watchers, static and harmless. The silence around the lararium is respectful. The draft that moves through the atrium seems to slow down here. The air is still. Back in the bedroom, the woman sighs. It is a sound of profound release, a letting go of the very concept of wakefulness. Ha! Her shoulder relaxes further, sinking another millimeter into the straw mattress. The straw whispers back, rustle, and then holds her. The cold has deepened. The radiant heat of the earth has fully dissipated into the sky. Now, The stone walls are radiating coldness into the room. The temperature is at its lowest point. But the bed is a miracle of insulation. The layers of wool, trapped air, and linen create a barrier that is impenetrable. Inside the cocoon, it is summer. Outside, it is winter. The woman exists in the summer of the bed. She dreams of a tree, an olive tree, old and gnarled, standing in a dry field. The leaves are silver green, the sun is hot. She is sitting in the shade of the tree. Nothing happens in the dream. The wind blows the leaves. The sun shines. It is a static image, a painting in the mind. The smell of the room has shifted again. The dampness of the mist has brought out the scent of the burnt wick from the oil lamp. It is a faint, acrid smell that hangs low in the air, mixing with the smell of the cold beeswax from the shrine. It is the smell of a ceremony long finished. In the tablinum, the wax tablets on the table are freezing. The stylus is freezing. The darkness covers them like a shroud. A small gecko, common in the houses of Rome, clings to the wall near the ceiling of the atrium. It is motionless. Its skin is the same color as the plaster. It is waiting for the dawn, just like the house. It does not move. It breathes slowly, its tiny throat pulsing. Pulse, pulse. The silence is thick. It fills the ears. It is a pressure like water deep in the ocean. The woman swallows. Her throat clicks. The sound is startlingly loud in her own ears, echoing inside her skull, but she does not wake. She adjusts her head on the pillow. The linen feels cool against her forehead. The house feels heavy. It is anchored to the ground by tons of stone and brick. It is a stable point in a turning world. The mist outside may swirl and drift, but the house does not move. Far away, a rooster crows. Error. It is a mistake. It is too early. The bird has been confused by the mist or a stray light. The sound is faint, miles away, muffled by the fog. It does not repeat. The silence rushes back in to fill the gap. The woman does not hear it. She is too deep. She is in the delta waves, the slow, rolling ocean of the unconscious. Her hand twitches once under the blanket, a nerve firing, then stillness returns. The darkness is a comfort. It hides the peeling paint. It hides the dust in the corners. It hides the weariness of the face. In the dark, everything is perfect. The Larrys stand on their shelf. The snake is painted on the wall. The salt sits in the dish. The sleeper breathes. In, out, in, out. The rhythm is the heartbeat of the house. It is slow. It is boring. It is safe. There is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. The night is not yet over. The night has lasted for an eternity. It is a vast, expansive stillness that seems to have swallowed the world whole. The mist that rolled in from the Tiber has settled into the very pores of the city, becoming one with the brick and the marble. It is no longer just weather. It is the atmosphere of the earth itself, heavy, white, and silent. Inside the cubiculum, the woman sleeps in a state of suspended animation. She is so still that she appears to be part of the bed, a mound of wool and linen that rises and falls with the subtle tide of her breath. Inhale, exhale. The rhythm is slower now than it has been all night. Her body is preserving energy, holding onto the warmth of the core as the room temperature hits its absolute bottom. The cold in the room is palpable. It is a sharp, clean chill that radiates from the stone walls. The Roman night is unforgiving in the winter. The stones, having lost the last calorie of the previous day's sun, are now acting as blocks of ice. They draw the heat from the air, leaving the room crisp and freezing. But the woman does not feel it. She is sealed inside her fortress of wool. The blankets are pulled up over her ear, leaving only a small circle of her face exposed, her nose and her mouth. The air she breathes in is cold. The air she breathes out is warm. This tiny exchange is the only thermodynamic activity in the room. She lies on her side, her knees drawn up high. Her hand is tucked under the pillow, seeking the pressure of the weight. Her fingers are relaxed, limp. The tension of the Roman day, the bargaining, the weaving, the managing, is a distant memory, erased by the hours of darkness. While she sleeps, the hidden veins of the house continue to function. Beneath the floor of the atrium, buried in the earth, run the lead pipes, the fistulae. They connect the house to the city's water supply. Inside these pipes, the water is moving. It flows from the great aqueducts high in the hills, down through the pressure tanks, and into the network of the streets. The water is freezing cold. It rushes through the dark metal tubes silently. It is a ceaseless flow, a liquid energy that powers the city even when the city is unconscious. It moves past the sleeping woman, feet below her bed. It is there, reliable and constant. In the kitchen, the culina, the cold is absolute. The stove is a block of masonry that feels like ice. The ash in the firebox is cold dust. A metal tripod sits on the counter. It is black iron. It is silent. A small clay pot hangs from a hook on the wall. It contains dried garlic. The garlic bulbs are papery and white in the dark. They smell faint and pungent. They hang motionless in the still air. The silence in the kitchen is heavy. It is the silence of a space that is waiting for work, but the work is hours away. Now there is only the wait. Back in the bedroom, the woman shifts her leg. The wool blanket slides against the linen sheet. Scritch, shhh. The sound is muffled, dying instantly in the heavy air. She settles again. The straw mattress creaks, a dry, grassy sound, and then holds firm. She dreams of a heavy door. In the dream, she is pushing against the door, but it does not open. She is not afraid. She is just pushing. The wood is warm. It is a boring dream, a sensation of weight and resistance. The mist outside presses against the shutters. It seeks entry through the cracks, but the wood has swelled with the dampness, sealing the house tight. The air inside is still. Dust motes hang suspended, locked in place by the lack of airflow. The woman swallows. Click, her throat moves, her jaw relaxes. The feeling of safety is profound. The walls of the house are 3 feet thick. They are made of concrete and brick. They are impregnable. The door is barred. The dog is at the threshold. The gods are in their shrine. There is nothing to fear in the dark. A drop of condensation forms on the inside of the window shutter in the main room. It runs down the wood slide, and pools on the sill. It makes no sound. It is a tear of the night. The woman sighs, chua, a long, deep exhale that empties her lungs completely. She is sinking deeper, if that is possible. She is merging with the bed. The smell of the room is the smell of winter. It is the smell of cold stone and damp wool. It is a clean smell, stripped of the perfumes and cooking odors of the day. In the storeroom, the amphorae of oil and wine stand in their racks. The oil is thick and cold. The wine is dark and still. They are the batteries of the household, storing the energy of the sun in liquid form. They wait in the dark. The silence is thick. It fills the ears like cotton. It is a pressure. The woman's heart beats. Thump, thump, thump. It is slow, strong, steady. It is the only clock that matters. She turns onto her back again. The movement is slow, a shifting of heavy weights. The blankets rearrange themselves. She stares up at the invisible ceiling with closed eyes. The darkness is soft. It is a velvet bag pulled over the head. It is comforting. There is no time here. The night is a single, continuous moment. The mist holds the world still. The stone holds the house still. The sleep holds the woman still. Everything is heavy. Everything is cold, everything is waiting. The peace of the Roman night is absolute.